My boyfriend picked up a homeless princess, dressed in Chanel, a fragile doll with congenital heart disease. In my past life, I devoted everything to caring for her, only for her to use a diary to paint me as the villain who abused her. After her death, my childhood friend went viral online with her posthumous work, and I learned she was the heiress of J City's wealthiest family. Cyberbullying, blacklisting. When the Chandler family drove me to the brink, a man descended like a god. It wasn't until I was 9 months pregnant that he personally tied my hands and feet, saying, "You killed Lucy, even 1,000 cuts wouldn't be enough to atone for your sins." At that moment, I realized he was the executioner meticulously arranged by the Chandler family. The three of them sat on the expensive sofa of the cruise ship, watching me struggle on the deck, amniotic fluid and blood flowing everywhere. My child suffocated to death inside me. Only then did they tie the dying me to a large stone and sink me to the bottom of the river. When I opened my eyes again, I was back to the day I met Lucy. Now, I have been reborn. In 10 minutes, Neil will bring Lucy to my door, as if bestowing a favor, expecting me to be her maid. At this thought, I quickly pulled out a worn wooden box from under the bed and opened the lid, revealing a mooncake tin. Inside was all my savings. Exactly $20,000. In my previous life, I was well hidden. But somehow she found out about me. Later, she found a sick Scottish fold cat. The vet said it had a genetic disease that couldn't be cured, and if she truly loved it, she should euthanize it to end its suffering sooner. But Lucy said that this Scottish fold was as pitiful as she was, and shouldn't be given up on. It had to be treated. She has no money and can only beg Neil and me. Neil is broke, never having even $100 in his pocket, yet this time he somehow scraped together $20,000 to pay for the Scottish fold surgery, but the Scottish fold still died a week later. That night, the rain poured heavily. Lucy, already frail, disappeared with the dead Scottish fold in her arms. No one knew where. Neil and I searched all night before finding her unconscious on the street in the wealthy district. After sending her to the hospital, I went home to get money and found that the money I had painstakingly saved for college had disappeared. Only then did I realize that the money for the Scottish fold cat surgery was my savings, but it wasn't Lucy who took the money. She just told Neil that he was the one who took it. We had a fierce argument, and from then on, we broke off all contact. Lucy moved into Neil's house. She already had a heart condition, and the incident with the Scottish fold cat plunged her into depression. She wouldn't even leave her room, relying entirely on Neil to take care of her. Neil truly loved her. To provide her with better conditions, he started striving, delivering food, doing live streams, putting in all kinds of effort, but Lucy still died, consumed by her depression. From then on, Neil became a completely different person. That was when the influencer economy was on the rise, and with his handsome looks, he rode the wave and became an influencer. When his followers reached 10 million, he posted Lucy's diary online. It went viral. Lucy's kindness and beauty, along with Neil's devotion, moved the entire internet to tears. As for me, the villainess in the diary, I was cyberbullied to the point of being utterly humiliated. They not only cursed me online but also doxed me in real life. After learning I was the daughter of a rapist, someone disguised as a homeless man broke into my home late at night. I fought desperately to drive him away. Only then did I realize that everything I had endured was part of a live stream challenge. It was Neil who initiated it. He was determined to ruin me. After tormenting me for 5 years, they killed me, along with Charles Chandler and my beloved. Now that I've been reborn, I will make sure they all pay in blood. I took the money and an old newspaper that had been buried at the bottom of a chest, carefully sealed them in a plastic bag, packed 2 pieces of clothing into a canvas bag, locked the door, and was about to head downstairs when I saw Neil and Lucy already waiting below. The rundown building had only one staircase, so going down would mean running into them. I quickly turned and went upstairs, hiding in the stairwell. Lucy, just like in my past life, was 16 years old, elegant and pure, like a lily about to bloom. Neil's father is unknown, and his mother went missing many years ago. We grew up together, cliché as it sounds, childhood sweethearts, each other's only friend. Until Lucy came along, he prostrated himself at the princess's feet, as if he too had become noble. Of course, he didn't make the wrong choice. In my past life, he rode Lucy's coattails, boarded the Chandler family's ship, and soared straight to the clouds, achieving a class leap. Now, though poor, he is truly handsome, tall and slender, agile and nimble, leading the way ahead. He said gently, Judy's father is a rapist, but don't be afraid, he's in prison, and Judy is the only one at home. She listens to me the most and will definitely take good care of you, later. I'll have her give up her bed for you and make her sleep on the floor, Lucy said weakly. Is that really okay? Does her family only have one bed? Neil curled his lip. She's just a poor wretch, with one room and one bed, and even that was picked up from somewhere. Actually, I live on the second floor. But it was still a burden for Lucy. She walked very slowly, and Neil accommodated her pace. It took a full 3 or 4 minutes to reach my doorstep, but what awaited them was a locked door. Yes, in 2015, our family still used chains and padlocks. He was dumbfounded. This Judy, it's summer vacation, can't she just stay at home properly? And she even brags about wanting to go to college. Yes, I was determined to change my fate by getting into university, which is why I worked so hard to earn and save money, but they stole it all, later. I even delivered takeout for 2 months to make ends meet before finally making it to college, after graduating and landing a job I loved. A storm hit. I was blacklisted by Charles Chandler. The poor struggle with all their might to climb out of hell, while the rich, with a gentle push, send everything back to square one, or even deeper into hell. But they don't know why hell is empty. On a July afternoon, the temperature soared to 40 degrees Celsius. A normal person couldn't stay outside for long, let alone Lucy, watching her face grow increasingly pale. Neil had no choice but to take her back to his place. Neil's home was also a single room, located on the first floor, a daily rental unit facing the neighborhood's trash bins, perpetually enveloped in foul odors. I hoped Lucy would get used to it. As soon as they left, I grabbed my bag and headed downstairs. Passing through the alley near Neil's place, hidden in the shadows, I watched coldly as Neil half-carried, half-dragged Lucy into that dark, damp alley. In his short-term rental, 8 shirtless men were sprawled haphazardly on metal bunk beds. The stench of sweat, feet, and cheap cigarettes mingled together, so foul that even the stray dogs at the door refused to come near. This place. Lucy's pupils contracted violently, her slender fingers clutching desperately at her Chanel skirt. The bald man closest to the door grinned, revealing a set of yellow teeth. Yo, brothers, yeah, bringing a chick back, fuck off. Neil kicked over the water bucket. Everyone, put your damn clothes on. But it was already too late. Lucy's scream pierced the stifling afternoon air. She saw a man covered in back tattoos brazenly changing his underwear on the bed by the window. Stop pretending, the tattooed man sneered. Oh, wearing Chanel, huh? Must be a rich girl. Neil grabbed a stool and hurled it at them. The group erupted into a brawl. In the chaos, Lucy retreated to the back door, tripped over the threshold, and her limited edition handbag fell into the filthy drain by the entrance. She tried to pick it up but knocked over a stack of beer bottles leaning against the wall. The shards splintered and cut her calf, making her cry in pain. The beer bottles toppled in layers, some rolling into the drain, others into the house. Some of these bottles still had beer residue inside, which, after fermenting in the heat, was no different from a stink bomb. Everyone in the room was overwhelmed by the stench and fled through the front door. Lucy covered her ears and cowered against the wall, still screaming. Neil tried to reach her but was blocked by flying beer bottles. Lucy, don't be afraid, they're just a few bottles. I picked up half of a clothes-drying pole from the ground and shooed the mice near the trash in that direction. With one last shriek, Lucy collapsed unconscious into Neil's arms. He roared like an emperor, shouting, "Call an ambulance." Yet, no one paid him any attention. In a frantic panic, he carried Lucy into the house alone, laying her on someone's tattered bamboo mat on the floor. He attempted both mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and CPR, but his efforts were chaotic and disorganized. Practically groping her all over, finally, I remembered to call an ambulance. I then quietly moved along the wall, gently removed the beer bottle, picked up Lucy's handbag, and quickly ran to a secluded spot before checking its contents. Inside was a stack of cash, about $20,000, 2 gold necklaces, and a Cartier diamond bracelet that sparkled in the sunlight. The fallen noblewoman, who had sucked me dry in my past life, was actually carrying over $300,000 worth of valuables. No wonder she could remain so composed and dignified, making my penny pinching for money seem especially vulgar in comparison. Snapped the SIM card in half and threw it into the filthy gutter, then smashed the phone to pieces. There was still a golden bank card hidden in the bag's inner pocket. I left it untouched and tossed both the card and the bag back into the murky water beneath the beer bottles. I made sure to stomp on them a few times. No way anyone could resell that bag now. I wanted to see if this pampered young lady could still keep up her refined airs without money. First, I went to a phone store, spent $500 on a second-hand phone, and got a new SIM card. Then I headed straight to the bank to deposit all my own money. Standing at the entrance of the plastic surgery hospital, I instinctively touched my face. Truth be told, I'm actually quite beautiful. I just didn't want to draw attention, so I always kept thick bangs and wore large black-framed glasses, covering most of my face. You could say that if I pushed back my bangs and tied up my hair, no one would recognize me, but in the end, this very appearance brought me trouble. It was summer vacation. And a banner reading, "Student Discount," hung at the hospital entrance, glaringly conspicuous under the scorching sun. "Your eyes are quite special." The doctor adjusted his glasses. "They're the standard phoenix eyes, very oriental in charm. Are you sure you want to change them to double eyelids?" "Absolutely." The original price of the surgery was $12,000, but the student discount brought it down to $6,000. "Paid with Lucy's cash," I lied, saying I was from out of town and worried about post-operative infection, so I requested to stay until the stitches were removed. The hospital agreed, charging only an additional $300 for accommodation. The surgery went smoothly. On the day the stitches were removed, my eyes were still swollen. The reflection in the mirror was both unfamiliar and familiar. The once most distinctive phoenix eyes were gone, replaced by a pair of delicate double eyelids. Yet it also erased my most striking feature. I still let my bangs down and put on the same bulky sunglasses, looking as plain as ever. On the bus ride home, I took out that crumpled newspaper from my bag. In the corner of the social section, an inconspicuous news item recounts an incident from 10 years ago. A sudden fire broke out in a shopping mall's children's play area. Fortunately, it was not yet open for business, and there were no casualties. Flipping to the front page, the headline of the day was glaring. The eldest son and his wife of the Chandler family, the wealthiest in the city, died in a car accident, leaving behind a pair of children. I sneered and opened my phone to search for the Chandler family's conglomerate. The current patriarch is already 76 years old, yet still remarkably vigorous. He had 4 sons. The eldest was born to his first wife, precisely that couple who died in the car accident. The other 3 were all children of his mistresses, each branching out with their own families. Little known to the public, the Chandler family also had 3 daughters, who usually only received pocket money and couldn't even touch the edges of the family's shares. In the Chandler family, daughters held no value. Lucy's running away from home was even more of a joke, because Charles Chandler's entry into the company was blocked and required a marriage alliance. This sickly girl presumptuously thought she had become a burden to her brother and chose to leave. Is this the logic of a normal person? No, she's a deranged woman obsessed with self-harm, desperate to be everyone's eternal white moonlight. But in my previous life, she succeeded. Just a few diary entries were enough to ruin my life. In this life, killing her will be as easy as pie. But killing her and Neil was easy. Killing Charles Chandler was difficult. He was the future richest man, along with my venomous ex-boyfriend. Until my death, I never knew his true identity. To kill him, I still had to start with Charles Chandler. So, Lucy is still useful. After getting off the car, I didn't go straight home. The scorching July sun baked the asphalt road, and the rising heat waves distorted the distant streetscape. I wiped the sweat from my forehead and headed to the second-hand market, where I bought a vintage box-style air conditioner from the 1990s and a small refrigerator. It only cost $1,200, but it would greatly improve my quality of life. Passing by the alley near Neil's house, I saw him and Lucy sitting under the parasol tree at the entrance, enjoying the shade from afar. I signaled the installation technician to take a detour. This staff dormitory building, constructed in the 1980s, was permeated with the lingering smell of old cooking oil and damp mildew on every floor. My home was just a single room of about 30 square meters. Upon entering, there was a tiny kitchen, followed by a bathroom barely large enough to turn around in, and at the very end was the bedroom. The wooden window frames had long since warped, letting in drafts in winter and trapping heat in summer. Now, this old air conditioner can finally bring a bit of coolness. Wiping the scratched floor tiles, my eyes feel sore. Only those who have experienced days without a stable home can understand how precious it is to have a space of one's own. After throwing away the old belongings accumulated over the years, the room suddenly feels much emptier. Just finished tidying up when familiar footsteps sounded outside the door. That bouncy rhythm could only belong to Neil. Sure enough, the moment he saw me, his handsome, sunlit face lit up with excitement. "Judy, where have you been these past few days? Do you have any idea how many times I've looked for you?" As he spoke, he tried to squeeze through the door. I blocked him with the broom. "What are you doing? I just finished cleaning. And you're all sweaty. Stay away from me." He still tried to squeeze in. Hatred surged within me, and I gripped the broom handle, striking him hard across the face. "Ah, you're fucking crazy. You're the one who's fucking crazy. This is my home. You think you can just barge in? What kind of person are you?" I picked up the kitchen knife from the stove, my gaze fierce. He staggered back, letting out an incredulous yelp. "Judy, what the hell's gotten into you, pulling a knife on me?" I brandished the knife. "We're not that close. Speak politely, and keep your hands to yourself." "Who's keeping their hands to themselves? With your rotten temper, I don't even want to be with you." "Then go away," I said, about to close the door. Then, with a cheeky grin, he reached out to block me. "Judy, I really need your help with something." "No." I cut him off sharply. He had no choice but to let go. Bang, the door slammed shut. No matter how much he screamed outside, I wouldn't open it. I turned on the air conditioner, enjoying the cool air, and quietly read my book. To take revenge on Charles Chandler, I must become stronger, and getting into a good university is the first step. Tired from watching, I took a watermelon from the fridge, cut it in half, and ate it with a spoon. Outside the window, Neil's curses gradually faded away. This time, I didn't let him have his way. He can no longer dump the burden of taking care of Lucy on me. I heard he had to work at a barbecue stall, earning $2,000 a month. Actually, if they budget carefully, it's enough for the two of them, but his house had been a short-term rental for several years, and people would come knocking every day, either asking questions or deliberately causing trouble. In this chaotic slum, even I, a native, second-generation prisoner, have to hide my appearance and keep a low profile. How could a white swan possibly fit in? Several times when Lucy was sleeping at night, someone broke into her room, scaring her so badly she ended up in the hospital multiple times. The money Neil earned wasn't even enough to cover the ambulance fees. Lucy's heart condition wasn't originally serious. As long as she took her medication on time, she was pretty much like a normal person. But if this continued for a long time, it's hard to say what might happen. That day, as I went downstairs to buy breakfast, I ran straight into Neil. "Judy." He grabbed my arm, his peach blossom eyes brimming with grievance. "What exactly have I done to offend you? You've been avoiding me lately. I'm really in a tough spot. Help me out. For the sake of our childhood friendship." Neil was blessed with striking good looks, rosy lips, pearly teeth, and eyes that curved into crescents when he smiled. He was a master at wheedling and charming his way into people's hearts, and the aunties in the entire building were often delighted by him, finding all sorts of excuses to slip him treats. I used to treat him as a friend and always looked out for him. Who would have thought that a heart full of sincerity could raise such an ungrateful wretch? "Speak." I withdrew my arm with a cold expression. He immediately put on a flattering smile and took half a step closer. "I have a female friend who has nowhere to stay right now. Could she stay at your place for a while?" "No." I cut him off before he could finish. "Your girlfriend doesn't stay at your place, yet you want to dump her on me." "She's not my girlfriend yet." His ears turned red, his gaze shifting nervously, looking every bit like a love-struck teenager. "So you like her?" I scoffed. "Don't you know the saying, the nearer the moon, the sooner you get it, and yet you're pushing her away." With that, I tried to step around him. "Don't go." He grabbed my sleeve in a panic. "I work night shifts, and it's not safe for her to be home alone. How about this? She stays with you during the day, and I'll pick her up after work. Deal?" "You don't get off until 2 a.m. You trying to wake me up and kill me?" I shook off his hand. "No way." Neil's expression darkened instantly. "Judy, what's wrong with helping a friend out? Then let's cut ties. I walked into the breakfast shop without looking back. Boss, a bowl of noodles, with mung bean soup. Only then did he notice the sunglasses on my face. Surprised. What happened to your eyes, Sty? I lowered my head and stirred the mung bean soup. Get me a bowl too. He shamelessly scooted closer, without even looking up. I said, grab a broken bowl and kneel at the door. Maybe you'll get some charity, you. He slammed the table in anger, then turned to the owner and shouted, give me the same thing, tossing out $10 with a glare. He added, who wants to mooch off you anyway? I picked up my bowl and moved to a corner seat. Neil followed me. What do I have to do to get you to help me? Ever since Lucy fainted on the street and had to call an ambulance, the whole neighborhood knew Neil had taken in a sickly beauty. Now, neighbors walk around his house, afraid of getting into trouble. I have a bad temper. It wouldn't be good if I accidentally scared your little fairy into something bad. I slowly wiped my mouth. Who are you cursing? His face instantly darkened. Sure enough, he didn't care if I cursed him 1,000 times, but Lucy couldn't be mentioned even once. Does love make people cheap? Here's the deal. I pointed to the tall building across the street. You go jump off that building, and if you don't die, I'll help you. Neil threw down his chopsticks and stormed out the door. Not much ability, but a temper as big as they come. But who's been spoiling him, besides? I don't believe he'd really cut ties with me, because he definitely can't take care of Lucy all by himself. Sure enough, he returned the next day at noon, with Lucy trailing behind him. This was the first time I had seen her in this lifetime. Compared to how she looked at the same time in my memories, she was unrecognizably haggard, her gaunt figure appearing as if a gust of wind could scatter her. I blocked the doorway. My face cold. Can I help you? Neil wiped his sweat. It's too hot to stay at home, but the subway station is too far, and Lucy can't walk. Let us stay here until evening. No, I refused outright. We'll pay, he hastily added, considering the grudges from my past life still needed their help to settle. I pondered briefly. Fine, 40 per hour. Are you robbing us? His eyes widened. The hourly rate at the motel up ahead is 30 per hour. I sneered. Go ahead. Lucy has a cleanliness obsession. The cigarette stench in those cheap motels would be the death of her. Neil's place isn't an option either. Over the years, the stench of those men has seeped into the house, and she can't stand being there for too long. Sure enough, the moment the words left my mouth, I saw her cover her mouth, her eyes brimming with tears. Neil instantly panicked, gritted his teeth, and slapped a $100 bill into my hand. I glanced at the time. It's 12 o'clock now. 2.5 hours from now will be the hottest time. Are you sure you'll leave on time? Let's set the time first. Otherwise, I meaningfully swept my gaze over them. I will definitely kick you out. What do you take us for? His face was grim. If you don't have money, don't try to chase girls. I scoffed. Lucy turned pale, while Neil's expression became even more dramatic. Finally, he pulled out another banknote, practically grinding his teeth as he spoke. Leave by 5 o'clock. Only then did I step aside to let them enter. A rush of cool air greeted us. Although the room was old, it was kept extremely clean. I even bought cement myself and replaced the old walls with new ones, laying pristine white tiles that reflected like mirrors. The floor was spotless. A floral tablecloth covered the old wooden table, and even the chairs had plain fabric covers. Judy, Neil couldn't hide his surprise. You've really learned how to live well now. A white sheer curtain now hung between the formerly connected bedroom and living room. The bed was covered with a mosquito net, a beanbag chair sat in the corner, and a bamboo mat covered the floor. At the foot of the bed was a newly acquired second-hand desk, and the bookshelf was crammed with books, both study materials and old books bought by the pound. I pulled the sheer curtains tight. Your activity area is limited to the sofa and the mat. Don't come into the bedroom. Lucy sank into the sofa cushion, her tense body finally relaxing. Suddenly, her gaze was drawn to the diary on the coffee table, her eyes gleaming with desire. Neil immediately leaned in closer. Do you like this notebook? Seeing her nod, he turned to me. Judy, let's give this notebook to Lucy. Are you a beggar? Do you want everything you see? I sneered. 200. Take it if you want it. Are you crazy? This crappy notebook is worth 200. It's called a limited edition cultural creative diary. Of course, someone like you who doesn't go to school wouldn't understand. Ask Lucy, isn't it? I was just making it up. It was just an ordinary notebook I randomly picked up at a stationery store, but the cover was very artsy, exactly the style Lucy would like. Sure enough, she nodded, carefully holding the notebook, her fondness for it written all over her face. Though Neil was poor, he was truly willing to give everything for her. Gritting his teeth, he handed me another $200. I handed a pen to Lucy. Here, a gift for you. Nice to meet you. Lucy smiled sweetly and softly. Thank you, Judy, I sneered inwardly while maintaining the same smile on my face. Draw the curtains and read inside. Lucy's gaze fell on the laptop on my desk again. Neil immediately caught on. Judy, your computer can connect to the internet, right? Can we borrow it for a while? Neil, I said without looking up. Either shut up or get out. If you're so good at begging, why don't you go set up a bowl on the overpass? He still wanted to argue, but Lucy gently tugged at his sleeve and shook her head. The world finally fell silent. That was just how Lucy was. Treat her kindly, and she'd push her luck. Be harsh with her, and she'd behave obediently. Some people just love to make things difficult. Neil soon started snoring on the straw mat. Lucy, meanwhile, was engrossed in writing in her newly acquired diary. At exactly 5 in the afternoon, I shooed them out without a second's delay. Outside, the sun remained scorching, the heat waves blistering. The moment Neil stepped out the door, he grimaced in pain, while Lucy didn't even dare to cross the threshold. Her damp, deer-like eyes full of pleading. Anyone would soften under such a gaze, except for me. All I wanted was to gouge out those eyeballs and stomp on them like firecrackers for sheer satisfaction. Hurry up, you're letting all the cold air out. I pressed against the door, urging them on. She finally shuffled out the door. Bang! I slammed the door shut with force. The consecutive days of scorching heat had turned these two into regular visitors. At first, I met them with a cold expression, but later I occasionally offered them cool boiled water, and even cut watermelon for them twice. They were as grateful as if they had received an immense favor. In my past life, I genuinely cared for Lucy. I remember the doctor said she had congenital heart disease and should avoid cold things, so I cooked for her every day. Though it was simple fare, it was healthy, yet she complained it wasn't refined or nutritious enough, claiming I mistreated her. Now, I deliberately only cook for myself in the morning and evening. For lunch, it's either spicy hot pot or chilled noodles, and the fridge is stuffed with ice cream and cold drinks. Neil and I could stomach anything. But she could only bite her lip and watch. This delicate flower had always been like this, never asking directly for what she wanted, just waiting for someone to hand it to her. Unfortunately this time, I turned a blind eye, and Neil was careless again. She had no choice but to swallow those forbidden foods with us. On the night of the dog days, the wail of an ambulance pierced the night sky. I leaned on the balcony, watching the flickering blue light fade into the distance. And suddenly thought, perhaps she wouldn't live to see her death in the previous life. The next morning, a thunderous knocking on the door echoed. Are you announcing your mother's funeral? Get lost. I was woken up and yelled through the door. After more than half a month of training, Neil had long lost the arrogance from his past life. His voice trembled. Judy, Lucy is hospitalized. The doctor said her condition is critical and she needs immediate surgery. We have to gather the money. Then hurry up and go. Why come to me? Neil collapsed at my door, crying bitterly, his emotions raw and genuine. After some thought, I decided to go to the hospital with him, not out of soft-heartedness, but to encourage Lucy to tough it out, lest she learns about her condition and actually returns to the Chandler family. What then? In the hospital ward, Lucy remained unconscious, the oxygen mask covering her pale face. Each faint breath formed a mist on the transparent mask, only to vanish quickly. The doctor held the medical records, explaining the situation in a grave tone. We're all orphans, I said calmly. My father is still in prison, and we can't afford the surgery. The doctor fell silent for a moment before finally sighing. Well, just be more careful in daily life. He prescribed us some affordable heart medications. Stepping out of the office, Neil clenched his fists, his eyes reddening. I grabbed his arm and whispered urgently, when Lucy wakes up later, don't tell her the truth. Why? He glared at me. Are you stupid? I sneered. Her heart isn't good. If she knew how serious her illness was, she'd be anxious all day. How could she recover? This is called a white lie. Just make sure she never finds out the truth, so she can keep digging her own grave. Neil froze for a moment, then finally nodded. So, after Lucy woke up, we just casually said, "The doctor said you need to rest well," and took her home. Neil truly loved her. From then on, he strictly followed the doctor's orders for every meal, cooking for her himself, just like I did in my past life. I thought I could finally have a few peaceful days. As a result, he came again. What now? I blocked the doorway and asked impatiently. His eyes lit up with excitement as he exclaimed, "Judy, I've made up my mind. I'm going to save up to treat Lucy's illness. Just landed a new job. Come with me." I scoffed. "You can work as many jobs as you like, but I'm still a student. Studying is more important. You don't have a shred of loyalty," he snapped. I looked him up and down and suddenly laughed. "I'm not close to her, so loyalty doesn't even come into it. You're so handsome, why not sell your ass at a bar? The money comes faster." Neil's greatest pain was that his mother was a streetwalker. The moment I finished speaking, his expression twisted violently, and he raised his hand to hit me. But I was prepared. I grabbed the iron rod by the door and swung it at him with all my might. "Humph, if I can't kill him, can't I at least beat him?" Asterisk thwack, thwack, asterisk 2 strikes sent him staggering backward, blood streaming down his forehead. He covered his face, blood seeping through his fingers, then shot me one last fierce glare before turning and walking away. I thought he would never come again, but the next day, he came again, and again with Lucy, shamelessly freeloading off the air conditioning. With a look of flattery on his face, reality truly makes one bow their head, and so, we coexisted in an indifferent manner. Under Neil's care, Lucy's complexion improved somewhat, and she even found a job as a cashier at the neighborhood pharmacy, while also studying medicine. On the side, she also adopted the same Scottish fold from her past life. It still fell ill, and there was no cure, but this time, she was penniless. And without me, the easy mark, Neil's money had all gone to pay for the air conditioning, so, she no longer insisted on prolonging its life, but simply stayed quietly by its side until it breathed its last. After the cat died, we decided to bury it by the river. I carried the shovel, Neil held the cardboard box with the cat, and Lucy followed behind with reddened eyes. We dug a pit, placed the kitten along with its favorite treats and toys inside, and covered it with earth. We stood on the riverbank, silently making our final farewells. The sun set in the west, and the river shimmered with golden light. A freighter slowly passed by, its whistle long and drawn out, like a silent lament. Throughout the summer vacation, I thoroughly reviewed all the knowledge from my first year of high school. In the first monthly exam after school started, I immediately ranked among the top 10 in my grade. The grants and scholarships combined were just enough to cover tuition and miscellaneous fees. As for living expenses, my homeroom teacher introduced me to a tutoring job, tutoring an elementary school student for an hour every day, for $50. Actually, I could earn more, but I didn't take it. I can't have money. If Charles Chandler found out I had the means to help Lucy but didn't, it would be another serious offense. Time, like sand through fingers, slipped by, and soon it was the final year of high school. The day before the college entrance exam happened to be Lucy's 18th birthday. Neil mysteriously showed up, saying he wanted to throw her a special birthday party and invited me along. I knew he was going to confess. Counting the days, I smiled. It really was a good day, so I nodded in agreement. The weather was beautiful that day. The sunlight was soft and warm, and the sweet scent of gardenias drifted on the breeze. Neil booked a private room at a karaoke bar and went all out decorating it like a banquet hall. Streamers, balloons, flowers, and photos. So tacky it was laughable. He invited over a dozen friends, each with excitement written all over their faces. After all, who wouldn't want to witness this romantic confession firsthand? When the cake was brought out, everyone sang, "Happy Birthday," in unison. Lucy stood in the candlelight, her smile melancholic, and I knew what she was thinking. A Chandler family heiress should have her coming-of-age celebration at a 5-star hotel, a private villa, or even a castle in Paris, but now, she could only stand under the neon lights of a cheap KTV, staring at the melted wax tears on the cream cake and Neil's overly eager face. Compared to Charles Chandler, it was like the difference between a prince and a stable boy. Her eyes reddened, and a tear fell onto a rose petal. "Thank you, everyone," she whispered. Lowering her head to blow out the candles, Neil, dressed in a rented tailcoat, suddenly knelt on one knee, presenting a wilted bouquet of roses, and said with what he thought was deep affection, "Lucy, I've liked you since the first moment I saw you. Will you be my girlfriend? Get together, get together." The shouts of encouragement almost lifted the roof. Lucy clutched the hem of my clothes tightly, her fingertips trembling. I pretended not to notice, holding up my phone to record. Suddenly, a notification popped up. Chandler family heir celebrates fiancé's birthday with $1 million fireworks show. In the accompanying picture, the riverside night sky was as bright as day. Wow, so romantic. I deliberately handed my phone to the girl next to me. "Look, this is such a grand gesture." Before the words had even finished, Neil exclaimed in shock. "Lucy," she had fainted again. This time, it's more serious than ever. The doctor removed his stethoscope, his voice heavy. "If she doesn't get treatment soon, she won't live another year." I flipped through the medical records, almost laughing out loud. In 3 years, Lucy had managed to turn a common heart condition into a terminal illness. That's right, these days, you can't be a CEO without an illness, and if you don't have a terminal illness, you can't really call yourself the female lead, truth be told. Returning to the Chandler family now would make not just treatment but even a heart replacement as easy as turning over one's hand. But could she go back? I won't allow it. Lucy was in a coma for 2 whole days. When she woke up, cicadas were buzzing loudly outside the window. It was the day of the college entrance exam. She saw me by her bedside, and a look of guilt appeared on her pale face. "Sister Fu, I'm sorry. I made you miss the college entrance exam." I gently shook my head. "It's okay. I already got early admission." For some reason, these words made Lucy burst into tears. She stared blankly at the ceiling, her eyes terrifyingly empty. "The doctor said you need to continue treatment, or your condition will worsen," I said calmly. "Death wouldn't be so bad." She suddenly let out a bitter laugh, her voice as light as a wisp of smoke. Ignoring the doctors and my dissuasion, she insisted on being discharged from the hospital. The doctor reluctantly took out the self-discharge application form. She signed it without even looking, as if she were angry with someone. I quietly put the document away, placing it with her medical records. After returning home, Lucy lay on the bed like an empty shell, neither eating nor drinking. I couldn't be bothered to deal with it and sent a message to Neil, who quickly took leave and rushed back. After returning home, I stood in front of the wall calendar, staring at the date marked with a red circle. A cold smile curled at the corner of my lips as I tossed the calendar into the trash bin. That morning, I went to tutor students in the second town. As usual, the key was hidden in the milk box by the door. At noon, I received a phone call. Then, with trembling hands, I called Neil. It rang for a long time before he finally answered. "Judy, I'm at work," he said impatiently. "Neil." My voice trembled with tears. "The prison just called. My dad was released today." "What, wasn't it supposed to be next year?" "No, only 3 months, and he's seriously ill." "Go home now," Neil shouted. I immediately hailed a taxi, but unfortunately, we got stuck in traffic crossing the river. What should have been a 30-minute drive ended up taking almost an hour. Standing in front of the tightly shut door, my nostrils were filled with the rusty smell of blood, so thick it almost had a physical presence, like a slick tongue licking my throat, making me nauseous. I knew. It was done. 3 years. I waited a full 3 years. Bob, fresh out of prison, couldn't wait to return to his old ways. Extending his claws towards Lucy, I pushed open the door, and the scene before me was even more perfect than I had imagined. Lucy lay sprawled on the ground like a broken rag doll, unconscious, and that beast, Bob, lay on his back in a pool of blood, his neck almost severed from behind, his back a bloody mess, his eyes still wide with the terror of death. Neil, gripping a sharp cleaver in his hand, the white shirt was splattered with bloodstains, like an abstract painting. At the sound of the door opening, he mechanically turned his head, his eyes as empty as 2 black holes. "Judy, what should I do? I've killed someone." I steadied myself. "We can't call the police, and we can't turn ourselves in, otherwise, everyone will know Lucy was. She wouldn't be able to live with it." Neil let out a beast-like roar. "Take the body away and make sure no one finds out what happened here. I'll tell Lucy she was just hallucinating from her illness." A glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes. "Will she believe it?" "She will," I said firmly, leave this place to me, but you must clean up thoroughly, don't let the news spread. It's best if it ends with you. Neil took one last look at Lucy, his eyes filled with heartache and determination. Lucy, I leave her in your hands. He went home, fetched a large suitcase, stuffed Bob inside, and took him away. I woke Lucy up, told her everything, and had her take a shower to clean up. She obeyed my instructions like a puppet on strings. After it was over, I stared at the ceiling, my soul seemingly detached from my body. Upon closer inspection, oh, I had fainted again. He then ignored her and fixed his gaze on Neil's house. At last, a burst of flames erupted from Neil's window, accompanied by an explosion. The fire spread rapidly, illuminating the night sky. Screams rose from downstairs as someone dialed 911. My gaze remained fixed on a certain spot until Neil appeared on the rooftop of the opposite building. From my window, I could only see his silhouette against the light. He climbed onto the wall and stood motionless, as if waiting for something. Then, amid the sirens of fire trucks, he took a step forward. His body traced an arc in the air. Like a bird with broken wings, I couldn't hear the sound of the landing, but I could almost see the burst of blood blooming before my eyes. In an instant, an electric surge of pleasure raced through my body, adrenaline flooding my veins, making me tremble. My fingers unconsciously tightened their grip on the windowsill, my breathing growing rapid. All the hatred, pain, and humiliation I had endured were perfectly released in this moment. Then, he crashed headfirst into the wall and passed out. The wail of sirens pierced the night sky, with red and blue lights flashing on the street in front of the neighborhood. Before setting the fire, Neil had doused the place with gasoline. Bob was burned beyond recognition. When they carried him out, his skeleton had already fallen apart. With my head wrapped in bandages, I sat hugging my knees on the staircase steps, watching the police officers come and go. The case isn't complicated. After killing Bob, Neil jumped to his death. In the interrogation room, the police asked me, "Were you at the scene when it happened?" I shook my head. No. When I came back, Bob was already dead. I only saw Neil covered in blood, repeatedly asking, "Did you kill my mom?" The policeman said in shock, "What did you say?" I swallowed hard and shook my head. He was covered in blood and not in his right mind. I was terrified and kept urging him to turn himself in, but he threatened me with a knife, forbidding me to call the police. I tried to scream, but he pushed me down, and then I blacked out. The officer glanced toward the surveillance camera and continued, "Where were you? How did Bob get the key?" After the holiday, I was tutoring, and today was no different. The spare key was always kept in the milk box. Neil knew, my dad knew too. I genuinely didn't know about Bob's early release from prison. The prison contacted me for the first time today, and only because the circumstances were unusual. Lucy came to my house today because the neighbor next to her place invited people over to play mahjong, and she found it too noisy, so she showed up at my place without giving me a heads up. Everything is just a coincidence. If I hadn't been reborn, I was interrogated for 48 hours before being released. After that, the police reopened the case to investigate the disappearance of Neil's mother, Fiona. She was buried under the duck shed at my hometown, her body already reduced to bones. The police came to my door again. 13 years ago, you were only 6 years old. Do you remember what happened? Memories flooded in like a tide. As soon as I arrived here, Bob took me back to his hometown. There were many duck farmers in the village. He found a job slaughtering ducks but always brought them home for me to do. One night a month later, Fiona quietly entered the village. The two drank and got intimate. Bob sleeps like a log. Every time he gets drunk, he blacks out and has no idea what he's done, often hitting me. Fiona laughed drunkenly, bending over, her brightly colored nails almost poking my eyeballs. The mixed scent of cheap perfume and alcohol on her was particularly pungent. "Your parents are dead. Who else can you get money from?" A sharp bone cleaver was right at hand. It was as convenient as Neil pushing open the door and seeing the cleaver on the counter by the door, blood splattered, warm against my face. I washed my face and hands, then went to sleep next door. The next day, for the first time, Bob didn't rush me to wake up early. I slept until the sun was high in the sky. He told me that Aunt Fiona had returned to the city and warned me not to tell anyone she had been here. From then on, my family also built a duck shed and raised many ducks. The shed was perpetually filled with a foul stench. When the police unearthed Fiona's remains, they found many clues, all pointing to Bob. Since he was already dead, and Neil and Fiona had no other relatives, the case was closed, but I reported it to the police again. "Officer, I'm a child abducted by Bob, not his biological child. You can check, everyone in the village knows. I couldn't have a father who was both a rapist and a murderer, or I wouldn't be able to take civil service exams." The police conducted a DNA test, confirming that I was not biologically related to him and that there were no legal adoption procedures. They also obtained testimonies from villagers about Bob's abuse and domestic violence toward me. As a result, they issued a certificate confirming my status as a victim. They asked again if I needed help finding my relatives, but I shook my head and refused. When I stepped out of the police station, the autumn sunlight was so bright it hurt my eyes. Golden ginkgo leaves carpeted the roadside. I bent down and picked up 4 intact leaves, then crushed one of them into fragments. Lucy was still in the hospital, neither speaking nor eating, and the staff had repeatedly urged me to pay the bills. I brought the ginkgo leaves to see her. She lay withered on the hospital bed like a flower deprived of water, about to wilt. I almost felt sorry for her, but thinking of my past life, I only felt it wasn't enough. My fingers deftly turned the golden leaves into butterflies, and I held the stem, making them dance. "Lucy, the ginkgo leaves outside have turned yellow. They're so beautiful. Get well soon, and I'll take you to see them." Lucy turned her gaze to me, her eyes filled with hatred, yet obscured by tears. "Okay, I want to go back." "Go where?" "The Chandler family." I shook my head. "Not yet. You're not well, and you owe the hospital a lot of money. Do you have any family?" Lucy's tears streamed down. She gestured for me to look at the diary. I opened the pages and saw that she had almost filled a notebook, with a bank card tucked inside. It was the same one I had seen before. She's really ridiculous. She could have just called her brother and everything would be solved. Yet she insists on making things difficult for herself. In the end, she still gave in. So what was the point of all that fuss in between? I took the card, went downstairs for a while, then came back up and told her, "There's not a single penny in this card." Lucy shuddered violently, reaching out to me with blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "No. Impossible. He wouldn't do this to me." I clutched her hand and whispered, "It's true, the card shows frozen, and the balance is 0. She threw her head back and wailed, pulling out her phone to make a call. I nodded repeatedly. "Yes, after such an awful thing happened to you, you should tell your family right away. They can take you home, and you can forget everything." Lucy's grip on the phone loosened, her eyes filled with utter despair and desolation. Finally, she looked at me pleadingly and said, "Sister, can you find a way to pay my medical expenses for me?" Of course, I was admitted to W University with a scholarship and have a $100,000 bonus, which is just enough. She looked at me gratefully. Then we went through the discharge procedures. The doctor clearly told me she had less than 3 months left to live, but I still didn't tell her. Neil's home was originally an illegally built shack, and it burned down. Now it has been leveled by the street. She could only come to my house with me. Bob's portrait hung at the entrance. She didn't dare to go in. I turned the portrait around. Lucy finally noticed the urn placed on the ground, bearing Neil's black and white photograph. I spoke softly. "Look at him. He really loved you. To keep you from being talked about, he was willing to jump to his death. He killed someone to save you. It was self-defense. He didn't have to die. He didn't even have to go to jail. It's all because of you." Lucy hugged her knees, crying like a lost cub. She pleaded with me, "Sister, I don't want to stay here. Can you take me to a hotel?" "I have no money," I said, then ignored her. "Take it or leave it." Lucy, living under someone else's roof, grew increasingly silent, living like a ghost. She stayed up all night, every night, writing in her diary. She wrote with a deep sense of sorrow and melancholy. "I went to college and only came back once a week. Every time I saw her, she seemed to wither a little more. The food in the house was barely touched. Finally, she burned herself out, like a lamp with only a flicker of light remaining. She finally decided to tell me her true identity. She wanted to beg me to meet her family, to let them see her one last time. I had already read her diary while she was unconscious. In my past life, only 1% of people criticized me, saying I didn't take good care of her. Yet, for this alone, Charles Chandler tormented me in every possible way. But in this life, a third of her content is about cursing me. First saying I'm arrogant and always cheating her out of money. After the rape incident, she hated me to the bone. Every word dripping with venom. If Charles Chandler were to see this, he'd probably skin me alive. The Chandler family's heiress, you, I smiled, pulling a photo from my bag to show her. You know, right, I had plastic surgery. Before, I looked like this. I held the photo up to her eyes. Then I lifted the heavy bangs, took off the black-framed glasses, and instantly, my whole appearance became bright and radiant. Does it look familiar now? Her pupils suddenly constricted, her lips trembling as they parted. So, you really could recognize me at a glance. I tied up my hair, took back the photo, and curled my lips into a cold smile. So, I didn't wrong you. I shoved her to the ground. She thrashed like a fish out of water, her throat squeezing out a hoarse threat. If you kill me, my brother won't let you go. He even froze your bank account. You're just deluding yourself. Besides, I have a souvenir for him too. I chuckled, pulling out a stack of photos from my bag and spreading them one by one before her eyes like dealing cards. All were surveillance screenshots of her being assaulted by Bob, high definition, capturing every inch of her contorted expression with crystal clarity. Her mouth gaped wide in a silent scream, but her struggles were too feeble, not even startling the sparrows outside the window. I installed surveillance cameras at home long ago. I leaned in and whispered softly in her ear. I knew you liked sneaking into my house when I wasn't there, sleeping in my bed, turning on my air conditioning. I deliberately pretended not to know. Her breathing grew increasingly rapid, her gaze unfocused, like a cornered beast pushed to the brink. I also know that Bob is lustful to the core, and with death looming, he'd surely play the philanderer one last time. I sneered. Though he's old, ugly, and filthy as a maggot, he's more than a match for you. A bastard who usurps another's nest and commits incestuous, immoral acts. I learned this trick from Charles Chandler. Killing is nothing, breaking the heart is the cruelest. Her fingers clenched the bedsheet tightly, knuckles turning white as she gasped violently for breath. By the way, haven't you been feeling unwell lately? Nauseous? I tilted my head and flashed a wicked smile. Congratulations, you're pregnant. I'll share this wonderful news with your brother. He'll be an uncle. And I'll be a sister. If you die, I'll bury your ashes with Bob, together for eternity, never to part. A dying whimper escaped her throat, then suddenly, her pupils dilated, her chest heaved violently a few times, and finally, it all fell still, dead, died of rage. My eyes were wide open, and no matter how many times I tried to close them, they wouldn't shut. I suppose it was the same when I died in my past life, wasn't it? But she died quickly, in just a few minutes. As for me, I died in agony, watching helplessly as the child in my womb struggled and then perished. So, she still owes me. I called an ambulance. By the time the ambulance arrived, she had already stopped breathing. At the hospital, the doctor pronounced her dead immediately. I cremated her and buried her ashes with that Scottish fold cat. After returning home, I carefully stored her belongings, her diary and bank card, and burned everything else to ashes. Then, sitting under the lamp, I flipped through her diary page by page. I took out another identical cultural creative diary from the cabinet. Over the years, I've practiced copying her handwriting every day, to the point where it's indistinguishable from the real thing. Even if she saw it herself, she might not be able to tell the difference. Now, 2 of my 4 enemies are gone, but the remaining 2 are completely out of my reach with my current identity. But I'm not in a hurry, pushing back my bangs and taking off my glasses, I revealed my stunning beauty. My social circle at school kept expanding, and I occasionally came into contact with some wealthy people, piecing together information about the Chandler family. But I wasn't in a hurry to enter the Chandler family's circle. I waited for Lucy's traces in this world to be gradually erased by time, until only I remained connected to her. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. That day, my classmate Evan's birthday party was set at the banquet hall of the Imperial Hotel, a property of the Chandler family. The floors above the 20th were membership only. I wore a champagne-colored evening gown, put on exquisite makeup, and headed there with a gift. While waiting for the elevator, the metal doors suddenly opened. A man stood inside, nearly 1.9 meters tall, with broad shoulders and long legs. His sturdy physique was encased in a black suit. His face had sharp angles, With high-brow bones and deep-set eyes that seemed capable of drawing in one's soul, I froze in place, though I had been searching for him all along and came today hoping to get lucky. When I actually encountered him, it still caught me completely off guard. Everyone in the elevator was staring at me, and my face instantly burned with embarrassment. "Coming up?" he asked, his voice deep. "Why yes," I stammered in reply. Walking into the elevator with such awkwardness that I nearly tripped over my own dress, drawing a few soft chuckles, my ears burned fiercely, and the hands behind me politely adjusted my skirt, making my face flush even redder. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice as faint as a mosquito's hum. Fortunately, my floor arrived quickly, and the moment the doors opened, I dashed out as if fleeing, after turning the corner of the hallway and waiting for the elevator doors to close. I finally allowed myself to tremble violently. It was him, my boyfriend from my past life, the father of my child, and also one of the murderers who personally pushed us to our deaths. We once shared intimacy, whispering sweet nothings, until just before my death, I realized it was all a deception. He was a hunter sent by Charles Chandler, specifically to lure me into ruin, and then, at my happiest moment, to cast me into hell. Even a tiger doesn't eat its cubs, he's worse than an animal. In my previous life, he told me his name was Harrison. Later, I heard Charles Chandler call him Harry. Even his name was fake. But no matter what, I finally saw him again. In the banquet hall, I handed the gift to Evan and quietly sat in the corner. In the eyes of my classmates, I was a quiet, almost aloof person, so my presence at the birthday party was already a surprise to them. "Judy, I didn't expect you to actually come." Evan walked over, his smile gentle, the tips of his ears flushed. He was the class representative. When I took leave to deal with Lucy's matter, he was the one who lent me his notes. "Sorry for the poor hospitality. It's quite nice." I pursed my lips and smiled shyly. "It's my first time attending such an occasion, so I'm not quite used to it. If you have things to attend to, please go ahead. I'll find a seat myself. I'm so poor that even the dress I'm wearing is rented, completely out of place here." Evan, however, looked at me earnestly, his eyes gentle. "The dress is beautiful, and you are the most dazzling lady tonight." One of them, I politely thanked him. "May I have this dance?" He extended his hand. A standard ballroom dance was playing, which I had learned in my freshman year. After hesitating, I shook my head. "I'm not very good at it, since you're already here." He winked. "Look how badly they're dancing. We're all classmates. It's fine." I took a look and found it to be true, couldn't help but smile. In the end, I was still pulled onto the dance floor by him. The music was beautiful, and I was even more so, the center of attention for everyone in the dance hall. Evan, usually composed, was exceptionally stiff today, his face flushed. "Judy, you dance better than I do. I've made a fool of myself." I nodded slightly and turned to walk towards the bar. Then I met Harry again. He was leaning against the bar, his long fingers wrapped around a whiskey glass, the amber liquid reflecting his deep-set eyes. I casually took a cocktail from a waiter's tray, hesitating whether to go forward. A classmate waved from a distance. I nodded at him and turned to leave. "Do you know that long-legged guy?" A female classmate leaned over and whispered. "No, you're lying. Evan was staring at you the entire time you two were dancing just now. I really don't know him." I took a sip of the wine, its sweetness carrying a slight buzz, barely tasting any alcohol, chatting, watching the dance. I unknowingly drank several glasses. When my vision started to blur, I shook my head and grabbed my bag. "My head is spinning, I need to go to the restroom." Cold water splashed on my face, and in the mirror, my cheeks were flushed, my gaze dazed. As I leaned against the wall to walk out, the whole world spun wildly. The next second, I fell into a firm embrace. The scent of cedar instantly enveloped me. This smell was too familiar, so familiar it made my stomach twist in pain. Those nights spent sleeping in his embrace, those illusions of having found a home. Turns out I never truly forgot them. The memories that followed were like watercolor paintings blurred by rain, the scorching breath in the elevator, the cold touch of him pressing me against the wall, and his hoarse, aroused panting in the darkness. I knew all too well how to make him lose control. The pressure of fingertips tracing the waistline, the perfect moment to bite my lower lip, even the subtle pauses in breathing, the frequency and rhythm of trembling, all of it was meticulously taught by him. When I woke the next morning, sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains, flooding the bed. The suite was empty except for me. My body ached as I gathered the scattered clothes, took a quick shower, and hurried away. Only when I opened my phone did I see a photo of a gilded business card in my album, Harrison, and a string of numbers. In my previous life, when we met, he had just been laid off and was a frustrated man who could only temporarily make a living by delivering food. In this life, he exudes an elite aura, but still using a fake name. However, his identity doesn't matter, as long as he shows up. After deleting the photos and returning home, I finally relaxed completely and began to review everything. Actually, I have a good alcohol tolerance. I just blush easily. Every second last night I was wide awake, including the accidental fall into his arms outside the restroom, the arms wrapped around his neck, and every whispered, yes. At this time in my past life, he should have been abroad. When I heard him say on the phone last night, "I'll be back in a few days," I knew the opportunity was fleeting. I've waited too long and didn't want to wait any longer. After the birthday party, I quickly became familiar with Evan. He seems to have a bit of a crush on me, which troubles me somewhat. He's a great person, but I don't deserve him. My life was ruined when I was 6 years old. The only reason I'm still alive now is to seek justice for myself and my parents. More than a month has passed since that day, and winter break is almost here. The day before the holiday, Evan asked me out to watch a movie. The more time we spent together, the more I realized what a genuinely good guy he is, bringing me an umbrella on rainy days, walking me back to the dorm, remembering my usual spot in the library, even rushing to the far canteen to grab spare ribs for me, just like any ordinary college guy on campus. If only I were just a normal girl, we could have had a simple, ordinary campus romance. But there are no what-ifs. He bought popcorn, holding a bouquet of roses in his hands, standing at the cinema entrance with a silly smile, waiting for me to show up. I hid around the corner. Tears blurred my vision as I took out my phone to text him. "Evan, I see you. I like roses very much, but I am not a rose." Evan anxiously looked around. I forwarded a link to him. It was Bob's information. "This person is my dad." I saw Evan open his phone, his expression changing from anticipation to shock to pallor. Then, he placed the roses on top of the trash can and left. What person with a clean background would accept the daughter of a rapist? The cold wind, carrying tiny snowflakes, swirled through the empty streets. I stood under the dim street lamp, looking down at my elongated, solitary shadow. A cold sensation touched my face. I looked up, watching the snowflakes fall like shattered jade from the sky. A snowflake landed on my fingertip, and before I could discern its edges, it had already melted into a glistening drop of water. Suddenly, the curtain of snow above was broken. Turning back, Harry stood holding an umbrella, his tall figure haloed by the hazy glow of the streetlight, as if he were a deity. Yet, I knew what a malicious heart lay beneath that beautiful facade. In a panic, I stumbled backward, my heel catching in a crack in the curb. At the moment my body leaned backward, his strong arm encircled my waist. The familiar scent of cedarwood enveloped me overwhelmingly, mixed with a faint trace of tobacco, making me cough abruptly. "Why didn't you call me?" His deep voice brushed past my ear, his warm breath stirring the stray strands of hair on my forehead. I helplessly clutched the corner of my clothes, letting him lift my chin. His kiss came suddenly and forcefully, as if to snatch all the air from my lungs. Our relationship progressed by leaps and bounds, at an incredible speed, literally. Until Chinese New Year, when we each went back to our own homes. On New Year's Eve, I cooked 6 simple dishes for myself, calling it our reunion dinner. Someone was setting off fireworks outside. I pushed open the window and saw him downstairs, looking up at me, his smile brighter than the fireworks. In that instant, his gentle eyes and brows almost made me believe he was a good person, my prince. My heart was cold, but my face broke into a smile of boundless joy. I pulled open the door, rushed down the stairs, and threw myself into his arms like a young swallow returning to its nest. The scorching kiss, like molten lava, engulfs me, melts me. The arrow is knocked, but he suddenly pauses. "Do you have any here?" I blink, coming to my senses, my face flushing as I shake my head. "No." As I try to retreat under the covers, he pulls me into his embrace. "If you get pregnant, you'll have my child." The next day was Chinese New Year. All the restaurants outside were closed. It was snowing, and I didn't feel like going out, so I hastily reheated 2 dishes to make do. He looked somewhat displeased. On the first day of the new year, and this is what we're eating. I slammed the bowl heavily onto the table. Eat it or don't. He hugged me. There, Judy, you're getting more temperamental these days. I took out my phone and sent a message. Before long, a delivery person from a 5-star hotel knocked on the door. Despite the exquisite dishes, we ended up making a mess of our meal. Afterwards, I rinsed my body with hot water, took a medicine bottle from the cabinet, poured out a pill, and swallowed it. Harry and I appeared close, yet he never tells me about his life. So far, if he were to suddenly disappear one day, I wouldn't even know where to begin looking. He has no intention of bringing me into his world. I had to find my own way to get close to Charles Chandler. The steam in the bathroom hadn't yet dissipated. As I stepped out, drying my damp hair, he was already waiting for me with a hairdryer in hand. The touch of his fingers through my strands was gentle, as if I were a treasure. I lowered my head, applying essential oil, when his phone rang. With just one glance at the screen, the warmth in his eyes instantly froze, replaced by a shadow of gloom. I have to go. The motion of him grabbing his jacket stirred a cold gust of air. I reached out and grabbed the hem of his clothes, my voice still damp with lingering moisture. Won't you stay with me today? He turned back and pinched my cheek, the corners of his lips curling into a perfunctory smile. Don't be silly, I really have things to do. But I didn't let go, my nails nearly digging into his sleeve as I bit my lip. Are you married? He paused for a moment, then laughed it off. What makes you think that? I threw myself into his arms, my eyes stinging as I looked up. You never reach out to me first. Never talk about yourself. No shopping, no movies, not even a single meal together. My fingers clenched his shirt tightly. Am I just a booty call to you, available whenever you want? He suddenly burst into laughter, pressing me down onto the edge of the bed. You're my woman. His scorching breath brushed past my earlobe as his hand slid beneath my clothes. I tried to struggle, but he pinned my wrists above my head. He loved to see me like this, pure and delicate. With my hair scattered on the pillow, my eyelashes trembling with shyness, yet my body honestly open to him. He didn't even have time to take off his clothes. Standing by the bed, his suit pants still impeccably wrapped around his long legs, his belt blurred into a streak beside my legs. I couldn't see his face, only hear his suppressed gasps. This affair was like a sudden storm, arriving quickly and departing just as fast. When he pulled away, I hadn't even caught my breath, and a fleeting kiss had already landed on my lips. Good girl. He buckled his belt and left without looking back. The sound of a car engine came from downstairs. By the time I ran barefoot to the window, I only managed to note down the last few digits of the license plate. Since that day, he seemed to have vanished. His phone was unreachable, and he didn't reply to messages. Just when I thought this lead had gone cold, a perfect opportunity presented itself. Charles Chandler is actually coming to our school as an honorary alumnus to give a speech. He's from our school. Evan nodded with a smile. Sort of. He was admitted back then but later went abroad for studies. He even donated a library to the school, so he's considered an honorary alumnus. On that day, the auditorium was packed with students attending the lecture, especially the girls, each dressed as if walking a red carpet, meticulously groomed. I wore an elegant linen maxi dress, braided my hair into a retro fishtail, with no extra adornments except for a dark green lace tied into a bow, gently resting on my chest. Among the sea of girls with heavy or light makeup, my fresh and unique style stood out. Do you really want to get his attention that badly? Evan suddenly appeared behind me, his fingers lightly brushing the green lace in my hair. I met his gaze calmly. The background check for the Chandler family is too strict. I need a recommender with enough weight. Evan immediately showed a look of concern. I'll help you. He was in the student council and a rich second generation, so he had some connections. Soon, he arranged for me to be part of the reception team. When I stood before Charles Chandler, his eyes trembled violently upon seeing the green ribbon in my hair. The speech quickly ended, and all subsequent procedures were omitted. He left directly, and his assistant walked straight through the crowd towards me. Student, would you mind sharing your contact information? I suppressed my wildly beating heart and handed over the resume I had prepared. My phone quickly vibrated with a friend request. Immediately after, another message popped up. Judy, Can you come to the library on the east side? The library was donated by the Chandler family. When I arrived, there was a "Closed today" sign at the entrance. Charles Chandler, 26, was tall and handsome, with a pair of slightly aloof phoenix eyes. Standing in front of the large floor-to-ceiling window, he resembled a medieval nobleman. I pushed open the door, stepped in quietly, and walked up to him with restraint. He motioned for me to come closer. His eyes were fixed on the green ribbon in my hair. "Forgive my presumption, Judy, but could you untie this lace and let me examine it closely?" After my initial surprise, I didn't hesitate to untie it. The fine fabric smoothed out perfectly with just a gentle stroke. Charles Chandler took it. And after seeing it clearly, he involuntarily trembled. "Judy, may I ask, where did you get this green lace from?" "It was a gift from my dear friend." "What's her name? Where is she?" I lowered my head sadly. "Her name was Lucy, and she's passed away." "What?" Charles Chandler was as if struck by lightning. His eyes filled with immense pain as he roared at me. "Impossible." I seemed startled and retreated repeatedly. You knew her." He was in even more pain. "She's my sister." I was utterly shocked. "She never told me." His face was incredibly handsome, and his love ran so deep. The sight of his reddened eyes made one feel an involuntary sense of pity, wishing to smooth away the melancholy and sorrow from his brow. Yet, I only looked at his throat. How much I wanted to cut it open. I got into his Rolls-Royce, and we came to my house together. Lucy's belongings were all collected by me in a cardboard box: medical records, hospital admission notes, various receipts, payment slips, a diary, and several photos of me, Neil, and Lucy taken at the riverbank. Charles Chandler tenderly caressed the photos. Then I opened the diary I had prepared for 6 years, ensuring there were absolutely no flaws. Whether in the handwriting or the tone, it was my painstaking work. And now it was finally opened. I was trembling with excitement, so I covered my eyes and turned away, as if I couldn't bear to watch. With just over 200 diary entries, less than 10,000 words, Charles Chandler read from morning until afternoon, until dark, without eating or drinking. I didn't entertain him either, only poured him a small glass of water. He didn't touch it, but his tears never stopped. I never knew a man could cry so much. Lucy's diary, indeed, is very touching. Not a single word mentions love, yet every sentence is love, intertwined with longing. There's no mention of resentment, only profound regret. Even netizens were moved back then, let alone the people involved. Charles Chandler initially just shed silent tears, but later he was sobbing uncontrollably, his back hunched as if he had lost all support. It wasn't until the driver urged him that he dragged his leaden legs downstairs and left, stumbling as he walked. As if his soul had departed with Lucy's. The next day, after my class, I saw him waiting at the door. In just one night, he looked shattered, with dark circles under his eyes and stubble on his chin, but his good looks only added to his mature charm. The classmates all showed surprise. "Judy, let's talk. I have class later, so we can only sit in the school cafeteria." He took out a marriage agreement and placed it in front of me. "What kind of thought process is this?" I merely wrote in my diary, in Lucy's voice, that she and I were like sisters, that I took meticulous care of her, that she owed me a great deal, and that I hoped my family could repay her on her behalf. And this is how they repay me. I'd rather they just gave me money. Besides, how could I marry Charles Chandler? I'd be struck by lightning. Impossible. Lucy told me she has a stepbrother who is actually her beloved. Is that you? Lucy and I are like sisters. How could I steal her beloved? She wouldn't rest in peace. And besides, I have someone I like. When I mentioned that, her beloved is her brother, Charles Chandler's face turned completely pale, his hands braced against the table, making it tremble along with him. "You love her too, don't you? How can you marry someone else? Are you being fair to her?" Charles Chandler declared domineeringly. "I need to get married. You, as Lucy's sister, are the one she owes gratitude to, the one who will remember her forever. No one is more suitable than you." I calmed down, clenching my fists tightly. "You mean, a marriage of convenience, just to fill a spot for her?" Charles Chandler's tone was as indifferent as if he were commenting on the pleasant weather today. "Yes, you can continue to like whoever you like, and I will absolutely not interfere." I began to think seriously. Charles Chandler had been the heir of the Chandler family since childhood, with high intelligence and elite education. He had also trained in various forms of combat and martial arts from a young age, excelling in both scholarly and martial pursuits. Surrounded by assistants, drivers, and bodyguards, getting close to him was nearly impossible. Harry is the same. With my abilities, killing them would be a pipe dream. Marrying him turned out to be my only way to get close to him. My eyes welled up, but I still shook my head. No, I really can't. He flipped to the end of the document, but it was Bob's information. From petty theft to multiple prison sentences, his record was stained with misdeeds. You wouldn't want your classmates to know, would you? Sure enough, he hadn't changed a bit over the years. He was still as arrogant and dictatorial as ever, like a puppet. I was led by him to the Civil Affairs Bureau, and we got our marriage certificate. Back at school, I saw Evan waiting under the cherry blossom tree, his shoulders covered in pink and white petals. The young man was as fresh as a spring onion. His eyes full of sincerity. My tears streamed down. He ran over to me, embracing me. What's wrong? Did he bully you? I sobbed uncontrollably. He held me tightly, patting my back like he was comforting a child. Take your time. Take your time. I pulled out the marriage certificate I had just received. He opened it and his pupils trembled. Why? I told him everything. He's repaying kindness with enmity. You weren't willing. You can sue him. Don't be afraid. I shook my head. He said it's just to have me hold the position, with no marital obligations between us. In 4 years, he will fully take over the Chandler family, and then he'll set me free. Evan clenched his fist. You agreed. You sold your marriage. I suddenly looked up and pushed him away. Yes, I sold it, and it was worth a lot. He said he'd give me $100 million when we divorce. I shook off his hand and ran away, ignoring his shouts behind me, although Charles Chandler and I got the certificate. Nothing in our lives has changed. He would occasionally message me, asking about Lucy. At first, I would reply, but then I got annoyed and simply ignored him. Graduation was just around the corner, and many of my classmates had already started internships. That day, I went to the dorm to pack my luggage and called a car to take me home. Upon arriving home, I saw a luxurious pink supercar parked downstairs. Leaning against the car door was a beautiful woman wearing sunglasses. I recognized her at a glance. She was Charles Chandler's fiancée, Mia, no, his ex-fiancée. She walked towards me aggressively. I said, wait a minute, can we talk after I've moved my things upstairs? Master, please help me carry all the boxes up. I'm just carrying one bag, I said, inviting her in. I'm sorry, my humble abode is simple, and I haven't prepared well. Her eyes were full of disdain, but she suppressed her dissatisfaction and entered, seeing how clean it was inside. She refrained from making sarcastic remarks. I know you're in a hurry, but please don't rush. Before you speak, please take a look at this. I showed her the iPad. It's all Lucy's diary entries that I took pictures of, after reading just a few entries. Mia was so shocked her eyes nearly popped out. So, they were into sibling romance. Before Charles Chandler came looking for me, I had no idea about Lucy's true identity. She had only told me that she had a brother she had loved since childhood. I thought it was just a term of endearment, but I never expected him to be her actual brother. So, there's no need for you to be angry with me. I'm just a tool, no, a worker. In 4 years, he'll give me $100 million. Mia was utterly speechless. What a scumbag, is he out of his mind? 6 years ago, Lucy was only 16, and she was already in love that deeply. That means it must have started way earlier. Jesus, that's disgusting. She rubbed her arms. Mia's ability to marry into the Chandler family naturally means she doesn't come from an ordinary background. Although not as prominent as the Chandlers, her family isn't far behind. She looked at me sympathetically. Do you like Evan? My fingers curled involuntarily. She slammed the table. Outrageous. He even resorted to forced marriage and plunder. Did he coerce you or threaten you? Tears welled up in my eyes as I could only shake my head in silence. Mia has a warm and kind-hearted nature, which I knew from my previous life. In that life, she married Charles Chandler, and her fate wasn't much better than mine. During the financial crisis, it was only through the sacrifice of the entire Lee family that the Chandler family weathered the storm. And Charles Chandler became the youngest billionaire, yet, she was merely a decoration, completely devoid of her former vibrancy and brightness. Don't be afraid, from now on, you're my friend, Mia. Okay. In the middle of the night, I woke up feeling hot. and when I opened my eyes, I found myself in Harry's arms. I bit his shoulder. Get lost. He gripped my waist. Why should Charles Chandler marry my woman? While I can't sleep with his wife, it was as if some taboo had been broken. He became even more aggressive, kneading me like dough, back and forth. Finally, the clouds parted and the rain ceased. He held me, kissing the sweat-dampened hair at my temples. Tell me, what happened? Why did he suddenly marry you? I turned over, ignoring him. Where were you? You weren't here when I needed you. And now you're showing up like a ghost. Who are you trying to scare? He embraced me from behind, his hands restless. I was abroad and didn't see. Now I'm back to stand up for you. I looked at him. Who exactly are you? How did you know about me getting the marriage certificate with him? His palm rubbed against my abdomen, his fingers cold as snake scales. Don't bother who I am. He chuckled darkly, his voice laced with venom. All you need to know is that once I get you pregnant, you'll have every right to enter the Chandler family and inherit everything they own. My whole body went cold. Yet strangely, I wasn't too shocked. He was a mad dog to begin with. So nothing he did would be surprising. Are you even speaking human? My voice trembled. He sneered, his eyes brimming with malice. What do you know? The Chandler family should have been the Johnsons by now. Who the hell are you? I stared at him intently. What's your relationship with Charles Chandler? His breath was scorching and dangerous. According to the Chandler family hierarchy, you should call me cousin, the Johnson family. The original wife of the Chandler patriarch was indeed surnamed Johnson. Back then, she married down with a massive dowry, which laid the foundation for the Chandler family's current status. But didn't the Johnson family die out? Wait, no, I vaguely remember that after Mrs. Johnson married, distant relatives scrambled to adopt heirs, hoping to get a share of the fortune. Could Harry be one of them? If that's the case, he and Charles Chandler share no blood relation. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Harry was clearly serious. Unfortunately, those days fell within my safe period. Gradually, I pieced together the truth from his words. He was indeed the adopted heir of the Johnson family, secretly groomed by the Chandler family but exiled overseas for years. I suspect he was the Chandler family's black glove, handling all their dirty work in the shadows. And now, this vicious hound was finally turning on its master. The night before he left, he caressed my belly and said, I won't be able to stay too long this time, but I'll be back soon. I feigned unease. But what if I really get pregnant? Charles Chandler and we've barely met twice. He kissed the corner of my lips, a chilling smile on his face. Don't worry, once you're pregnant, I'll arrange everything. How would that work? I clutched the sheets tightly. Wouldn't the Chandler family demand a paternity test? He chuckled darkly, his eyes glinting with venom. Of course they would, but what if Charles Chandler were to meet with an accident? His thumb traced my carotid artery. A dead man can't take a DNA test. My pupils contracted. You're going to kill him. Having second thoughts, he gripped my chin, or perhaps, his voice turned seductive. You don't want to become the dowager of the Chandler family. I sneered. Empress Dowager. I think you want to be prime minister, don't you? He suddenly burst into laughter, his chest vibrating like a bloodthirsty wolf, his ambition laid bare. That's right, you were always mine. He was the one trying to take you, otherwise, I wouldn't have even thought of it. I buried my head in his embrace, tightly hugging his lean waist. I'll do whatever you say, just make sure you arrange everything carefully so we don't get caught. Not long after, I got my period, and Harry was very disappointed. Leaving the country for business, I enrolled in a graduate school prep course. Evan is preparing for the civil service exam, at the same institution. We haven't seen each other since that unpleasant parting, but he often messages me. That day, after attending a classmate's wedding, it started pouring rain as I left, and he suddenly appeared downstairs at my place, still wearing a raincoat. A large dark figure startled me. I quickly led him inside. What's wrong? He took off his outer raincoat, and then I saw him, wearing a white shirt and a tie, carefully holding a bouquet of white lily of the valley. It's the bouquet from the wedding just now. The thought of him, a grown man, fighting with a group of girls for the bouquet is both amusing and heartbreaking. His eyes were red. I'm sorry, last time at the cinema, I shouldn't have walked away like that. I should have been brave enough to give you that bouquet of roses. Judy, I like you. I reached out to take the flowers, inhaling their fragrance deeply. Then she pulled his tie and kissed him on the lips. He raised his hands in fear. Judy, have you had too much to drink? I hadn't been drinking at all. Someone had accidentally spilled wine on me, so I went to the room to rest. Otherwise, I would have noticed he was the groomsman much earlier. Are you going to take advantage of the situation? His face flushed crimson. No, I can't. You can't. No, it's not good. I wrapped my arms around his neck. I think you're great. You're the best, and I like it. I really like it. Evan blushed, breathing rapidly, and finally, when I placed his hand on my waist, he swept me up into a bridal carry. As the morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, I awoke in his arms. He woke as well, and when our eyes met, both our faces flushed red. His eyes sparkled like stars. I snuggled into his arms. Morning boys are truly not to be messed with. I was utterly exhausted, not wanting to move a muscle in the end. He, however, had the energy to get up and went out to buy me breakfast. For 3 days, my home became an isolated Eden. Judy, can we be together? Let's go talk to Charles Chandler. Give me some time. I'll find an opportunity to ask him. Evan pursed his lips, his eyes full of grievance. But I don't want to wait. Our relationship shouldn't be hidden. But he said if I don't cooperate, he'll expose my dad's situation to everyone. Can you bear to see me in that kind of predicament? I asked him. I'm sorry. I won't ask anymore. Don't cry. He carefully wiped away my tears. As if I were a fragile treasure, my resolve grew stronger, and I clung to him even more. He's quite dedicated. Before leaving, he cooked a few dishes and put them in the fridge. Then reluctantly went home. I'll head back now, otherwise, my mom will really start looking for me. I looked exhausted. Okay. He touched my waist and shyly whispered, should I come again tonight? Do you want to come? I want to. I'll wait for you. For several days in a row, he came over. Finally, on the 12th day of our secret rendezvous, I dreamt at night of a large white goose swimming towards me, its eyes bright and lively, splashing up huge amounts of water. I had a feeling. I hurriedly called Harry, pestering him relentlessly until he dropped his overseas affairs and came back to accompany me for 2 days. Sure enough, when it was time for my period, it didn't come. I bought a test kit, tested for several days, and finally, it showed 2 lines, sent to Harry. He flew back overnight and held me tightly. I'll arrange everything. A week later, Mia's birthday, she sent me an invitation. That day, I dressed up meticulously, stepped into the banquet hall in high heels, found a corner suitable for watching the show, and my eyes were full of anticipation. The light refracted by the crystal chandelier spilled over the mingling crowd, where the scent of perfume and the gleam of jewelry created an atmosphere of extreme luxury. The appearance of Charles Chandler brought the atmosphere of the venue to its peak. The Chandlers and the Lincolns had been united by marriage for many years, but the engagement was suddenly called off not long ago, sparking various speculations online. Tonight's performance was merely to stabilize the business collaboration between the 2 families. They stood side by side, smiling appropriately, as if they had truly reverted to being just friends. The 2 even danced the opening dance together. I have to say, Charles Chandler is truly a dazzling man, handsome, wealthy, and morally upright. Every girl in the room couldn't take their eyes off him. But just before the banquet began, he suddenly swayed slightly. Through the crowd, his gaze gleamed coldly, his voice low and tense as he looked at me. Judy, come here. All eyes turned toward us in unison. My ears burned, but I had no choice but to approach, stopping a few steps away to ask, what's wrong? He suddenly grabbed my wrist, his breath scorching. Take me away, now. His palm was burning, and his knuckles were white from the force. I realized he had been drugged. Mia had booked 3 floors of the entire hotel, and I quickly found a suite. Listening to the sounds coming from the room, I sat on the sofa in the outer room, covering my ears. Nothing will go wrong, right? Harry leaned against the window, his fingers lightly tapping the rim of the wine glass, a faint smile playing on his lips. Don't worry, it's foolproof. That night was exceptionally long. I fell into a deep sleep on the sofa and woke to find Charles Chandler already gone. The room had been thoroughly searched, leaving only the faint scent of fur behind. A month later, I sent him a photo of the 2-line pregnancy test strip. he personally took me to the Chandler family's private hospital for a full set of examinations. When the words 4W1D on the report came into view, I finally breathed a sigh of relief. The plan had succeeded. In the main hall of the Chandler family's ancestral home, sandalwood chairs were solemnly arranged. Charles Chandler stood before the crowd, his voice calm and clear. "This is Judy, my lawful wife, officially married. And now she's pregnant." The air instantly froze. Although my family background was ordinary, I had a good education, was dignified and beautiful, and had a decent social circle. Grandfather Chandler appeared quite pleased, while the expressions of the other family members varied. The second madam's nails almost dug into her palms, and the malice in her eyes was undisguised. "Judy." Charles was being thoughtless, not telling the family about getting the marriage certificate. Grandpa Chandler said affectionately, "After the baby is born, Grandpa will arrange a proper wedding ceremony for you both." "All right," I nodded obediently. "Okay." Then came the family reunion, the tea ceremony, and a pile of valuable gifts. Grandpa Chandler had the housekeeper take me to rest, leaving Charles Chandler alone with him. The Chandler family's ancestral home was a vast Chinese-style garden, with pavilions, towers, and winding paths leading to secluded spots. Charles Chandler lived in a 5-story villa next to the main building. He occupied the second floor, while I was assigned to the 5th floor. Pushing open the carved wooden window, the night breeze, laden with the fresh scent of grass and trees, brushed against my face. I gazed at the layers of eaves, my thoughts drifting far away. After an unknown amount of time, a knock sounded at the door. Charles Chandler stood at the door, his handsome features etched with exhaustion. "I'm sorry." His voice was hoarse. "That day, I was drugged," I sneered, apologizing now. "Don't you think it's too late? If you really feel guilty, then don't ever appear in front of me again. You only ever cause trouble for people, and your so-called deep affection for Lucy is truly hypocritical." Born a favored son of heaven, it was the first time he had been treated so ruthlessly. His body swayed slightly, and he finally left in silence. After moving into the Chandler family home, I finally understood why Charles Chandler had grown so alarmingly thin. Ever since he learned of Lucy's death, he started drinking heavily, several times to the point of stomach bleeding, and his liver also developed problems. How ironic, his self-destructive and self-abusive behavior was identical to Lucy's. I thought to myself, even if Harry didn't act, he would eventually work himself to death. After staying at the Chandler family estate for half a month, I knocked on Grandfather Chandler's study door and expressed my desire to return home. The old man looked up from behind his rosewood desk, his gaze through his gold-rimmed glasses scrutinizing. "You're leaving after only a few days." I stood with downcast eyes on the carpet, feeling the intricate embroidered patterns beneath my feet. Outside the window, bamboo shadows swayed, casting dappled silhouettes on the rice paper window panes, exactly as they had a very, very long time ago. "I'm not used to it. Not used to it." The dragon-headed cane struck the ground heavily. "As the wife of the Chandler family, can't you even handle this much pressure?" I slowly looked up and took a craft paper bag from my handbag. The essential oils inexplicably appearing on the bathroom floor, the tiny glass beads on the stairs, the cold blood-invigorating recipes on the dining table. Grandfather Chandler's pupils suddenly contracted, the paper in his hands emitting a faint rustling sound. The next day, he directly ordered all other branches of the family to be expelled from the old house, only allowing them to return for holidays. After my pregnancy stabilized, I was finally allowed to go out. In the private room of the coffee shop, the door was pushed open, and a familiar figure made me catch my breath. Evan was so thin he was almost unrecognizable, his suit jacket hanging loosely on his shoulders. My eyes instantly welled up with tears. The news of my pregnancy and moving into the Chandler family had long reached many ears. It was no surprise at all that Evan would know. Of course, he should also know why I got pregnant. Charles Chandler later caused trouble for Mia, believing she was the one who drugged him, and even threatened to ruin her family's business. But I intervened, buying Mia time, and eventually found the real culprit. Of course, he was also a scapegoat arranged by Harry. Mia was very grateful to me, but also felt sorry for me, and firmly believed that Charles Chandler was mentally ill. Evan knew all the twists and turns of the situation, so he hated and was angry, and several times he suggested meeting, but I refused. "Judy," Is the child mine? Or his? I touched my belly, which was already showing a bit. I've had it checked. 3 months. He and I got together 4 months ago. 3 months. It can't be his. He gently embraced me. It's okay. It's okay. As long as you're all right. What are your plans? He said he'd let me go once I gave birth to the child. So, will you leave? I don't know. So I came here to tell you this time. We're breaking up. Don't wait for me anymore. Evan tightened his arms around me. Why should I be the one to leave? You love me, don't you? Yes, I looked at him. But we're not on the same path. Evan, you're wonderful. It's me who doesn't deserve you. Let me go. I won't let go. I'm not a burden. I'll help you. Let's sue him. I almost laughed out loud. How could he be so foolish? But I'm the young mistress of a $1 trillion conglomerate, and my child is the future heir. I don't want to leave. Evan looked at me in disbelief. You're lying to me, but it doesn't matter. My family is also wealthy. If you're trying to trick me, I'll give you everything. I shook my head. Believe it or not, it's over between us. If you truly love me, then keep these matters to yourself and don't mention them to anyone. His gaze reminded me of a wounded young animal, yet I hardened my heart and refused to look. As I stepped out of the cafe, the autumn wind swirled fallen leaves into my embrace. In the rearview mirror, that tall, straight figure gradually shrank to a tiny black dot before vanishing completely. I wiped my face, only to find my palm covered in water stains. Returning to the old house, I saw someone unexpected. Harry, Grandpa Chandler happily said. Where did Judy go? I went to the bookstore to buy books for the postgraduate entrance exam, met a classmate, and had coffee. Grandpa, who is this? This is Harry. You can call him cousin. Hello, cousin. Harry's gaze lingered on my eyes before he curved his lips into a smile. Sister-in-law, you too, Grandpa. I'm a bit tired. I'm going back to my room now. All right, we'll have dinner together later. Charles will be back too. Okay. I went back to my room, took a shower, and then lay down on the bed. I had just fallen asleep when I felt an added weight beside me. Are you trying to get us killed? We'd be finished if anyone saw us. Harry kissed me. They are all my people, of course I know. If it weren't for his arrangements, I would have died countless times already. The Chandler family is truly a dragon's den and a tiger's lair. Gently, I bit my lip, not daring to let out a sound. He propped himself up with his arms, looking down at me from above. Judy, what's going on between you and Evan? My heart skipped a beat. Just classmates. His eyes deepened. I'll give you one more chance. My heart involuntarily skipped a beat. He likes me. Then what about you? Who do you like? I gritted my teeth again, not answering. He suddenly became furious. Judy, you've got some nerve, actually daring to cheat on me. I glared at him. Don't say such nasty things. How much do you even like me? What do you take me for, doing all these things? He grabbed my face. Judy, look at yourself. If it weren't for me, could you have married into the Chandler family? If it weren't for me, you'd still be living in that drafty, broken down house, after just a few days as a young mistress. You've forgotten your place. I closed my eyes tightly, not moving. He hugged me again, coaxing, good Judy, don't make me angry. If I didn't like you, why would I plan so much for you? Everything now is for our son's future. You can protect him, right? I don't dare provoke him anymore and can only comply. What if it's a daughter? It must be a son, otherwise, we'll have to start all over again. And next time, he might not fall for it. I know all too well how ruthless he is. In my past life, he listened to Charles Chandler's lies and deceived me with the same tenderness and affection, yet in the end, he abandoned me without hesitation, even killed me with his own hands. In his eyes, love and children were all ladders to wealth and power. Such a scumbag doesn't deserve to have children at all, nor does he deserve to live. When will you act? Charles Chandler drinks heavily every day, and when his stomach aches, he takes painkillers by the bottle. How about poisoning him? Harry looked at me and suddenly smiled. Judy, you're so adorable. I think that's a great idea. I'll get the medicine for you, and you can feed it to him. All right. My pupils contracted as I shook my head. No, Harry, you must do it, otherwise I'll be stuck with all the dirty work. If you betray me, I'll be the one who suffers. I was furious. How could I betray you? If they find out the child isn't Charles Chandler's, I'll be the first to die. Harry kissed my face. Good, then do as I say. I love watching. You always say I never take you shopping, to the movies, or out to eat, that I'm not romantic, but for me, plotting a murder together, especially your husband's, is the ultimate romance. I looked at him with mixed feelings. You're really twisted. Not even bothering to pretend, his handsome brows lifted slightly. Thanks for the compliment. It was almost dinner time by the time we got up and went downstairs. I ate without tasting the food, and as expected, he brought me the medicine. This is the secret medicine of the Johnson family. Give it to him when he coughs up blood. It will kill him in 10 minutes, without anyone knowing. He stayed with the Chandler family for a few days, spending every night in my room. Especially excited whenever Charles Chandler was home. When he finally left, I went home once, caught 2 mice, and used a tiny bit of the secret medicine. They both died in less than a minute, but as my belly grew larger, Charles Chandler actually developed a sense of responsibility. He was originally a legend in the business world, learning to manage companies in his teens, taking over as CEO at a young age, and gradually gaining full control. Only I knew that ever since Lucy left, he had been numbing his pain with alcohol, escaping reality, and degenerating from a business genius into a walking corpse. Recently, however, he suddenly stopped drinking heavily and would occasionally stare blankly at my belly, as if seeing a glimmer of possible salvation in this unexpected life. Then, I drastically reorganized the company, cutting down a lot of staff from the second and third branches, which caused a lot of resentment. Occasionally, when I encountered them at home, their eyes looked at me as if they were hiding daggers. I was even more afraid to go out, and I was very cautious even at home. On New Year's Day at the Chandler family's ancestral home, the entire family gathered together. Even the 3 aunts who were usually away had returned. The eldest aunt, Penny Chandler, was 50 this year. She had never married or had children, having made great contributions to the Chandler family. Yet to this day she hadn't received even a single share, only drawing a high-ranking executive's salary. After the dinner, the various family members dispersed. I found Penny Chandler smoking alone in the garden. Seeing me standing in the cold wind with my pregnant belly, she put out her cigarette, waved away the smoke, and frowned. It's so cold. What are you doing out here? Her tone was cold and hard, but I knew this was her way of showing concern. Thank you, Auntie. We talked for a long time. She was escorting me back to the main building when Charles Chandler was waiting at the door. He walked me upstairs and suddenly whispered, "What did you say to her? I've never seen her look so gentle." "Perhaps she likes children," I said with a faint smile. "Do you know why Auntie never married?" Charles Chandler fell silent for a moment. "She is the eldest daughter of my grandfather, the first to join the company. Back then, she helped my father a great deal." "Was that car accident 16 years ago really an accident?" I suddenly asked. He suddenly halted, his gaze turning icy sharp. "Judy, you'd best remember your place." His voice was barely above a whisper, yet each word cut like a knife. "Don't think that hearing a few idle rumors gives you the right to pry into the Chandler family's secrets. Speak out of turn again, and you won't even know how you died." I caressed my swollen belly and sneered, "Is that why you're so afraid of death? You know your parents' deaths are suspicious, yet you don't even dare to investigate, and you're living harmoniously with the murderer. What's the difference between that and acknowledging a thief as your father?" "Judy," he roared, his knuckles white, "you don't need to shout. I can hear you." I looked him straight in the eye. "Don't worry, I have no interest whatsoever in your secrets or the Chandler family's secrets. I just find it pathetic. A child born after 10 months of pregnancy, knowing their parents were murdered, yet not even daring to seek revenge. You might as well have given birth to a sesame cake." Charles Chandler trembled, his eyes bloodshot and menacing. "Don't think I can't touch you just because you're pregnant. Bullying a pregnant woman, is that all you're capable of, coward?" I scoffed and turned to go back to my room. Sitting by the window, looking at the festively decorated Chandler garden, tears silently rolled down my face. "Dad, Mom, I will definitely avenge you." After that night, Charles Chandler started drinking heavily again. When he was drunk and delirious, he wandered the hallway clutching Lucy's diary, calling her name over and over until he alarmed Grandpa Chandler. The old man flew into a rage, but I glimpsed an even filthier truth. The entire Chandler family had known about Charles Chandler and Lucy's affair. No wonder no one went looking for her when she ran away from home. They would have preferred her to die outside, lest she tarnished the Chandler family's reputation, and Lucy's true identity was even more twisted than I imagined. 16 years ago, a department store fire killed Charles Chandler's younger sister, Sarah Chandler. On the same day, the eldest son and his wife of the Chandler family died in a car accident. The Chandler family's stock plummeted. To quell public opinion, they suppressed the news of Sarah Chandler's death, leaving her without a grave or a name. They even brought in a girl from outside to replace her. That was Lucy. To the outside world, she wasn't an adopted daughter of the Chandler family, but their biological daughter. Was she really just picked up at random? I asked Harry. He scoffed. Of course not. The second branch's master had a white moonlight mistress outside, and later, for a marriage alliance, he sent her abroad. But that woman married a short-lived man with hereditary heart disease, came back with a child, and became his mistress again. Was the mall fire really an accident? Who knows? Harry said, playing with his lighter. The mall wasn't open yet, and it was a holiday. Charles Chandler took Sarah Chandler to sneak in and play, and only he escaped. He paused, giving me a meaningful look. The fire was too intense. 6-year-old Sarah Chandler. Not even her bones were recovered. Did Charles Chandler ever mention what happened that day? Harry suddenly narrowed his eyes. Why are you so interested in this matter? I just find it suspicious. The entire Chandler family seems like a man-eating demon, and I fear my child and I might meet the same fate. He gripped my chin, his voice chilling. Don't talk nonsense, and stop asking around. After that fire, Charles Chandler developed PTSD and completely avoids that memory psychologically. Even seeing a psychologist didn't help. Only Lucy could calm him down. That's why they adopted her. Great-uncle gave the order. No one is to mention this matter ever again. First, Lucy engaged in a forbidden romance with him, and now, even in death, she's left him a hollow shell of his former self. It has to be said, the second branch of the family knows exactly how to destroy a person. Charles Chandler, a complete idiot, a good-for-nothing. As my baby bump grew, the undercurrents in the Chandler family's old mansion became more turbulent, until one night, as I was strolling in the garden, the beam of the pavilion suddenly broke and collapsed with a crash. In my terror, my water broke. In excruciating pain, I saw Penny Chandler. She happened to be back at the old house to pick something up, which was why she was able to get me to the hospital in time. Mother and child are safe. Grandfather Chandler was overjoyed and immediately gifted the newborn great-grandson 5% of the Chandler family shares, naming him Jack. On the eve of the full moon celebration, Harry finally found a chance to sneak into the nursery. He carefully picked up the child, but his face instantly changed when he saw those eyes. Those were the Chandler family's signature phoenix eyes, identical to Charles Chandler's. For the past month, I've been stopping him again and again, precisely for this reason. I almost wanted to put double eyelid tape on him, but then I gave up the idea, fearing I might harm him. What are you angry about? Suspecting he's Charles Chandler's son? Are you out of your mind? You know exactly what happened that day. Then can you explain why his eyes are so small? Who are you calling small-eyed? Your whole family has small eyes. Can't you tell I've had plastic surgery? Damn it. Only then did he suppress his anger. Staring at my face, really, I closed my eyes. He practically pressed his face against mine, finally spotting a tiny scar from surgery. Then I showed him the records of my plastic surgery from back then. You scared me to death. Get lost. I snapped at him. He kissed me hard, then playfully picked up Jack. Oh, Daddy's good boy. Your eyes aren't small at all. So dark and bright, just like your old man's. And this big forehead. How smart. I rolled my eyes. If you can't say anything nice, shut up. Will you be happy if he grows up to be bald? Harry slapped his own mouth. That was nonsense of me. My son is the handsomest in the universe. Children sleep a lot. He only opened his eyes for a while before falling asleep again. Harry gazed at him with tender affection, his heart seemingly melting. Don't pass your scummy vibes to my son. After the baby fell asleep, I dragged him out of the nursery. When are we doing it? So eager. He raised an eyebrow. At least wait until after the full moon banquet, otherwise they'll say our son brings bad luck. The richer people are, the more superstitious they become. On the day of the full moon celebration, the elite of J City gathered, holding Jack. I stood beside Grandpa Chandler, receiving congratulations. Everyone, whether genuinely or pretending, was in high spirits. Only Charles Chandler stood out as the exception, dressed in a bespoke black suit. His handsome, sculpted face showed not a trace of joy. His wine glass was already empty as he stood by the window, his gaze hollow and fixed on the void. Mia was very happy for me and even gave me some private advice. What's up with Charles Chandler, on such a wonderful day? He's still wearing that sour face, what a downer. But looking at his half-dead expression, it might not be long before you become a widow. When that happens, I'll take you to pick out some male models. Since the drugging incident, she had become Charles Chandler's #1 hater, turning him from the heartthrob of the circle into a complete lunatic in her eyes. He really was sick. He had only seen the child once in all this time. Once, I heard him crying drunkenly in his study, clutching Lucy's diary tightly. If only it were our child. His love for Lucy runs as deep as the sea, and even I have to admit that. But if he misses her so much, why doesn't he follow her in death? Probably because work is too exhausting. I still have to maintain his image in public, after all. There was another heartbroken person at the scene, Evan. He glanced at Jack, just once, and his eyes turned red. He was adorable. Jack is very domineering, even several nannies can't handle him at night. He insists on sleeping with me. He's also quite arrogant, not even giving face to the old master. Yet now, seeing Evan, he actually extends his little hand on his own. Evan, flattered, reaches out to shake his hand. The little one flashes a toothless grin. When I saw someone looking over, I quickly had the nanny take him away. Evan's eyes darkened, and his expression was sad. Just after the new year, J City was hit by a snowstorm, the likes of which hadn't been seen in a decade. Lucy loved snowy days the most. Charles Chandler set off fireworks in the garden, the explosion startling Jack awake, the baby's cries echoing through the old mansion. Grandfather Chandler couldn't stand his despair over Lucy and told him to get out, so he went to his apartment in the city. Those 2 days happened to be the weekend, and his assistant was off as well. When he didn't show up on Monday, they went to his apartment and found he had been dead for 2 days. Excessive alcohol consumption, vomit obstructing the trachea. Rather than poisoning him directly, Harry and I chose a more discreet method. He placed a special bottle of whiskey, a 55-degree single malt laced with just the right amount of an emetic, in the most prominent spot of the liquor cabinet. The dosage was calculated to induce violent vomiting before unconsciousness, without raising immediate suspicion. When Grandfather Chandler heard the news, he had a stroke on the spot. Dad, there's something wrong with Charles's death. Second Uncle Jason Chandler's eyes were bloodshot. He was murdered. Harry had already switched the wine from the scene that day, and the doctors all said it was an accident. It was practically flawless. Yet Jason Chandler wasn't suspecting him. He was suspecting me. Uncle, I said with an expression of disbelief, have you lost your mind? What reason would I have to kill him? Jason Chandler threw out a stack of photos, scenes of Evan and me breaking up at a cafe, captured with quite the atmospheric touch. What does this prove? I chuckled lightly. We were classmates who happened to meet at a postgraduate prep class that day. Is having coffee together not allowed? Aunt Penny Chandler coldly interjected, second brother. Without concrete evidence, such accusations will offend the James family. After joining the Chandler family, I learned that although the James family's business scale is not as large as the Chandlers, they have deep-rooted connections in the capital, making even the Chandlers hesitant to provoke them. Jason Chandler sneered and pointed at Jack in the stroller. He is the evidence. I checked your prenatal records. They're all forged. Turning to Grandpa Chandler on the hospital bed, I said with a hint of grievance, Grandpa told me to do it. Under Jason Chandler's shocked gaze, the old man slowly nodded. Penny Chandler added, Judy has experienced multiple accidents since moving into the old house, and we've had to conceal the truth. As for the reason, she looked around at everyone. Some people here know perfectly well. Jason Chandler gasped with anger and continued, I also have evidence. I originally wanted to get Charles's hair to do a DNA test for him and his father, but I found that there were no samples of Charles anywhere. His body was cremated without our knowledge. The house and apartment were thoroughly cleaned. Personal belongings were disposed of, and even the DNA samples stored in the hospital vault disappeared. It was certainly unreasonable that Charles Chandler's body was cremated before his funeral was even held. I shook my head repeatedly. Grandpa, I didn't. Some people want to get rid of my son and me, and they'll stop at nothing. Listening to this, it seems flawless. But that's actually the biggest flaw. I've been at home taking care of the baby every day recently. I haven't even stepped out the door. So how could I possibly have done it? Someone is clearly crying, thief, while being the thief themselves, deliberately framing me. Grandpa Chandler stared at me, his eyes cold, tears streamed down my face. Grandpa doesn't believe me. Fine, then let's do a DNA test. Charles's DNA samples were all destroyed, but you are his grandfather and great-uncle, and you're also related by blood to Jack. If it proves you're related, won't that prove his relationship with Charles? Penny Chandler, no, what if you really cheated? And the person you cheated with was a cousin in the family, they would still be related by blood, I said decisively. Then test everyone, call all the uncles and cousins in the family and compare them with Jack to see if there's a father-son blood match. Penny Chandler hesitated, but, if this gets out, it will sound so bad. Just say that Grandpa is drafting a will, and everyone in the family will get a share. Grandpa, what do you think? Grandfather Chandler glanced at Jack and still nodded. Jason Chandler, on the other hand, hesitated because I appeared too confident, and Jack also bore a striking resemblance to Charles Chandler. I didn't give him a chance to back out and seized the moment to say, but if we can prove the relationship between Charles and Jack, what then about the accusations and false allegations you've made against us today, Uncle? It was the first time I directly confronted the second branch. Not backing down an inch, Grandfather Chandler signaled Penny Chandler with a look. She pulled a piece of paper from under his pillow, covered with worm-like handwriting. It was his will. It stated that 35% of the group's shares under his name would be entirely transferred to Jack. Jack himself holds 5% of the shares, and Charles Chandler still has 15%. Combined, Jack now possesses the largest shareholding in the group. Dad, Jason Chandler nearly fainted. Grandfather Chandler closed his eyes and refused to look at him. He wasn't so senile yet. While the law might allow illegitimate children inheritance rights, societal norms wouldn't permit it, especially for major corporations under public scrutiny. If he actually went through with it, it could provoke widespread outrage and tank the stock price. Penny Chandler said, everyone has heard it, let's proceed as Judy suggested. The hospital happens to have a gene sequencer, and the results will be ready in as little as 2 hours. All members of the Chandler family had their samples taken, under the watchful eyes of everyone present. There was absolutely no possibility of tampering, as the genetic testing was being conducted in full swing. Harry was so anxious that sweat beaded on his forehead. Under the guise of delivering milk tea, I slipped a laminated photo into his cup. After he saw it, his pupils dilated in shock. Any member of the Chandler family would recognize my identity at a glance, because I am Sarah Chandler, who perished in the fire 16 years ago, the biological younger sister of Charles Chandler and the true heiress of the Chandler family conglomerate. That fire wasn't an accident. Charles Chandler was the one who took me there. After I discovered the fire, I tried to crawl out of the ball pit, but I was too small, so I screamed for help. But my brother was clearly right above me and just wouldn't appear. But what he didn't know was that there was someone else in the unopened mall. It was Bob. He originally intended to steal something, but then he found 2 children from wealthy families, so he took advantage of the chaos to abduct me, hoping to extort money. However, the Chandler family suppressed all information about me. I knew that my parents' deaths and my own entrapment in the fire were no coincidence, so I lied to him, saying I was just the child of the Chandler family's nanny, worthless, but that I could get him money. As a child, I loved burying treasures. Just a few days prior, I had buried a small pink diamond worth $1 million in a corner of the villa garden. I had Bob dig it up and sell it for $500,000. Coincidentally, Bob had no children. Seeing how clever I was, he adopted me, and at my request, he bought the small studio apartment I now live in, finally giving me a place to call home. In my previous life, Lucy recognized me at a glance, so she deliberately tormented me and stabbed me in the back. Actually, she was being redundant. Although Charles Chandler and I are biological siblings, he was raised by our grandfather from a young age. While I grew up with our parents, we only saw each other a few times during holidays, so there was no real affection between us. That's why, at just 10 years old, he didn't hesitate to attack me when he found out I wasn't dead. He simply tried to kill me again. It would have been the same with or without the diary. It was only when I was on my deathbed that I finally understood, so the first thing I did after being reborn was to get plastic surgery. I am Sarah Chandler, so the DNA results show that Jack has a 12.5%, 1/8, kinship with Grandpa Chandler and all the uncles. While it doesn't directly prove a father-son relationship with Charles Chandler, it doesn't rule it out either. And none of the samples provided today show a father-son blood relationship with him, unless the Chandler family has another son out there who happens to be the man I cheated with. The results of the test were not entirely conclusive. Whether to believe them or not was entirely up to Grandpa. I brought Jack to him. Grandpa gazed at him for a long time, his eyes gradually welling up, because Jack only resembles Charles Chandler in the eyes. But he looks exactly like my deceased father did when he was a child, truly identical, he declared. Jack is my great-grandson, second son. If your eyes aren't working well, get them treated, don't avoid seeing a doctor, and don't lie through your teeth. This matter is never to be mentioned again. Ironically, the subsequent comparison results showed that none of the children from the second and third branches had any blood relation to the Chandler family. Among them was even Jason Chandler's favorite grandson. The old man almost fainted from anger. My aunt and I exchanged glances, both suppressing the mockery in our eyes. In this world, the only true guarantee of a family's pure bloodline is the child born to a daughter, not a son or grandson. Why can't they understand that? I confronted Jason Chandler. Now, can my innocence be proven? His face was red and his neck was thick, not understanding why the result was like this. Grandfather Chandler instructed the lawyer to proceed with the will he had written, making no changes to it. All matters settled, Jack and I were the ultimate winners. Everyone returned to the old mansion together to prepare for Charles Chandler's funeral. The door gently closed behind me. Before I could turn on the light, I was suddenly pulled into a familiar embrace. Harry's arms tightened like iron bands, his breath hot against my ear. I never thought you'd be Sarah Chandler. My body stiffened for a moment in his arms, then relaxed. Yes, he finally understood why I hated Charles Chandler. When the fire broke out, I was in a plastic pool, surrounded by balloons exploding like bombs, one after another. He was standing right there, close enough to pull me out, but he didn't. I cried out, "Brother, save me." The mall was empty, only echoes. At that moment, I swore that if I survived, I would make him feel every minute, every second of my despair. He was instigated by the second wife to monopolize the shares left by Mom and Dad, and my parents' deaths were also their doing, right? I looked up, meeting Harry's eyes directly. His gaze flickered, and his Adam's apple bobbed slightly. Yes, it was them, but I knew that was only part of the truth. Back then, my parents were surrounded by wolves. It certainly wasn't just the second branch of the family who made a move. My grandfather's turning a blind eye, the relatives' cold indifference. And many people like the Johnson family, like vultures, waiting for their chance. I want you to kill them. My voice was as light as a feather, yet carried an undeniable resolve. So many years have passed, and without evidence, Grandpa wouldn't allow me to call the police. In his heart, the truth doesn't matter. His grandchildren don't matter. Stock prices are everything. Revenge, I can only rely on myself. Harry's brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. I know that expression too well. He's weighing the pros and cons, calculating gains and losses. You don't want to. I took half a step back, creating distance. You've seen their attitude towards Jack. This time was a fluke because they didn't find Charles Chandler's DNA sample, but that doesn't mean they'll never find it. Do you think a will makes everything foolproof? As long as Grandpa is alive, the will can be changed at any time. As long as Jack is gone, the will becomes useless. Do you dare to gamble? Harry's pupils contracted for a moment, then returned to normal. He suddenly pulled me back into his arms, burying his nose in my neck and inhaling deeply. Okay, since they're all here today, I'll do it now. Don't be silly. Are you sure? Don't you need to prepare in advance? Harry scoffed. Good girl, you and I are on the same page. I never intended to keep them anyway. I kissed him for the first time. I trust you the most. He held me tightly, as if to meld me into his flesh and blood. I looked at our intimately intertwined shadows on the wall and felt like a monster. Late at night, chaotic screams echoed from outside. I opened my eyes in fear, and Harry patted my back. Don't be afraid. I pushed him. Hurry back to your own room. Don't let anyone see you. His face was handsome as he leisurely buttoned his shirt, broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist, his chest firm. The moonlight cast a silver outline around him. Beautiful as a dream, hiding the complexity in my eyes, I poured him a cup of tea and raised it with both hands. May you achieve immediate victory and swift success. He looked at me with an unusually tender gaze, tilted his head back to finish the drink in one gulp, then leaned down to kiss me. I turned my face away, so he gently pressed his lips to my hair instead, softly murmuring, "Judy, I love you." I smiled faintly and gently pushed him away, saying, "Go now." In my past life, I loved him to the core, saw him as my only salvation, yet he was the one who killed me with his own hands. In this life, what he gave me, I have returned to him. After washing the cup he used and placing it back on the rack, I threw on my coat and hurried downstairs. Chaos had already erupted downstairs, running into Penny Chandler, her eyes brimming with tears, a complex gaze. Someone poisoned them. The second family is all dead. I covered my mouth and gasped at just the right moment. Then call the police quickly. Just then, the nanny's scream came from upstairs. I followed the crowd rushing upstairs and saw Harry lying on his back on the bed, blood at the corner of his mouth, his eyes wide open, bewildered like a child, yet with a faint, elusive smile on his lips. I had looked at him the same way back then, unable to understand why the person who claimed to love me so much would treat me so cruelly. Now, our positions have been reversed, standing by the bed. I suddenly realized my tears were falling in large drops onto his face, and I was frantically wiping away the bloodstains from his cheeks. Only halfway through wiping it away did I realize, this isn't right. I should have felt satisfaction, just like when I watched Neil and Charles Chandler die. So why does my heart feel like a piece has been hollowed out? Memories flooded back uncontrollably. In my previous life, during the darkest moments of my existence, he entered my life like a ray of light, giving me the courage and hope to live. It was he who taught me how to face others' slander and malice, transforming me completely. It was he who gave me a brief haven, allowing me to experience the happiest 2 years of my life. And on the day he killed me, the fleeting glint of moisture in his eyes, perhaps it was just a reflection from the water, or my own delusion. How could a man who personally killed his wife and child shed tears? It must be a hallucination, my mind trying to excuse him. So the last image etched in my mind was only of him pushing me into the water with his own hands, and the bobbing of his Adam's apple as he tilted his head back to drink the poison tea. All that happened yesterday, like flowing water, has passed. Love and hate, right and wrong, all have ended. After investigation, it was discovered that the murderer was the nanny who had worked for the family for over 20 years. She also took poison and left a suicide note. It turned out her daughter had committed suicide after being assaulted by my second uncle. I lay dormant for years, only for revenge. As for Harry, the perfect crime he personally designed was indeed flawless. The police could only conclude it as accidental death. Since the drug was identical to the nanny's, my grandfather passed away suddenly after hearing the news that the second branch of the family had been wiped out. I sold Jack's shares to the third and fourth branches for $50 billion. I also gave Penny Chandler a hefty sum as a token of gratitude. Harry thought he was my greatest ally within the Chandler family, but little did he know that after successfully getting close to Charles Chandler, I had already contacted my aunt and formed a partnership with her. She had long known my identity, as well as Jack's true parentage. As a high-ranking executive in the Chandler family's hospital, she easily manipulated the prenatal checkup and DNA reports, deceiving everyone. Regarding my departure with money, everyone in the industry said I was short-sighted, but I knew that in just 2 more years, the real estate market would collapse, and the Chandler family empire would crumble, leaving all shareholders drowning in debt, so much so that even the rooftops wouldn't have enough space for them. Now is the last chance to get off. As for whether I can hold on to such a vast fortune, ahead, the phoenix trees blaze like fire. Evan is holding Jack, happily teaching him to speak. Dad, after hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.